What's going on, everybody? I think we're live. Are we live? Let me see if this went live. You. What's going on, everybody? I gotta rename this mofo real quick. Give me 1 second. Good to see everybody. If you're just tuning in, we might do some freaking what's it called, live debates or something. I got the restream set up. Let's see. So talking to chat and everything. If you guys want to say what's up, it's good to see you. It's Duck, streaming from my desktop. Collins, what's the point of? Hold on, I don't know what the point of the stream is. All right, my name is Duck. This is Duck's Y. If you're just tuning in, it is good to see everybody. We're just kind of hanging out. Might do some freaking what's it called? Should I put the link in chat? Let's do that. If you guys want to call in, we can debate about rights or atheism or something, or philosophy. Hey, what's up, Pachamama? Why do Christian nationalists hate thy neighbor and continually oppress people of color? Are you aware that Trump is militarizing the country and weaponizing DOJ and CBP violating human rights? What's the CBP? Hi. Good to see you. Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. I wouldn't say that Christian nationalists, like if we were debating about this, I wouldn't say Christian nationalists hate thy neighbor. I think if you guys have heard recently people accusing the right of what's it called? Accusing the right of having this sort of like woke political mindset. Love from Ligamballs, Georgia. Yeah, like the woke right, I think I would describe it as like wayward political souls. Wayward political souls is maybe the best way to say that. Yeah, it's a good question. If you want to call in and talk about it, I'll take either side. But yeah, I'm gonna put the link in chat. I'm still getting used to this stuff, so I'm sort of clumsy, you guys. I just hooked up the link if you guys want to hop into studio. If anyone wants to talk on stream, not a big deal. We can just hang out and talk too. If you guys have watched any of the mobile streams, usually try and kind of have a dialogue. You know, it's awesome when people in chat are talking to each other and stuff too. But you know, it's all good. I gotta go to my phone to pin this comment. Yeah, what do you guys think? MAGA is MAGA and Christian nationalism the same thing? I kind of draw the connection back as far, at least, as the Tea Party. That's kind of where I'd go in my head. Yeah, totally. No, I think you're being too nice, right? The fact that people talk about it, I think that's political softness is maybe like a term. People used to have lots of sort of opinions and stuff. You know, Yeah, someone could say that like, look, I'm a Christian nationalist and I vote for Christian politicians in my home state and I want to hear Christian issues talked about on the national level. They wouldn't necessarily say that like, well, American identity has to be Christian, you know. Yeah, I'm going to vote for people that put the Bible in schools, but that's not the only answer. Stop using the Wendy's drive-through headset now, bro. Wendy's drive-through headset is good. Plus, if you didn't know, we should have some deep cut tracks. Whoops. You know, it's actually probably more so the case that I should be using a Wendy's drive-through headset. This is to David A in chat. He wants me to buy a sure, maybe a Rode. David might be an audio engineer. He might have a good reason that I should buy an actual mic. Really, we out here trying to have a conversation and talk to some folks. If you noticed, I pinned up the link if anyone wants to hop on stage, talk about Donald Trump, Christianity, Christian nationalism. Let's have a conversation. The way I see it is that if you are willing to feed America, if you're happy at work, you can learn in any environment. You can learn in that environment. Maybe it's also the case that on social media, maybe as far as CNN, when we look at major broadcast networks, we should see ordinary Americans represented. Maybe we can talk about the minimum wage. Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think that maybe I can't afford a better headset? Yo, do you remember me from yesterday? Zizo Gaming, I'm so bad at names. I kind of remember Pachamama. If we talked about something, let me know. It's good to see you. We got Zizo Gaming in chat 333, everybody. So what's up? If anybody wants to talk politics, if anybody wants to come up, have a conversation, you guys got a question, let's talk minimum wage. We've got someone from Alaska. Who knows? Sarah Palin. Maybe it's Sarah Palin. Who knows? You guys want to talk about something serious? How about this? We can do a deep cut on the historical political issues that Christians in the United States have fought for, won, and lost. How about that? You guys want to do that? Okay. Hey Lenny, what's up? Lenny's getting screened out by the auto moderator. It's good to see you, Lenny. I can't even see you backstage where I got the chats up, but Lenny, thanks for joining us in chat. David A says Roman amphitheaters have better acoustics. Probably. There's not a little bit that you can do with a headset, but it's not a lot, but it's not a little bit either. We can do something with it. We can make it work. We're gonna work it at least as hard as this setup. At least as hard as this setup, for sure. Zizo Gaming saying, yo, I'm Muslim, but why did y'all worship a man named Jesus and drink his blood every Sunday? No offense. Oh, we got Roman Catholic questions. We got questions about Roman Catholicism. You know, I do have that same question personally. You know, I am someone who is a former Catholic. Someone who's okay. So as someone who's a former Catholic, I never understood transubstantiation as literalness. And you know, you probably know that there's probably plenty of Muslims that interpret aspects of the Quran outside of what is it, the Shahada, the aspects of the Quran as allegorical, you know, maybe divinely inspired or something. But Who knows? Lots of Catholics take it that way. Lots of Catholics say the word. Lots of Catholics have personal belief, right? You know, back in way back in ye old 2006, 2007, when I still sometimes went to church and stuff like that. If you ask someone if they believed in the gospel or something like that, they would be like, yeah, sure, why not? What else would I say? I think that's pretty typical of Roman Catholicism. Yeah. So I hope that answers it. I don't know. It is a weird idea, a weird belief, but there's lots of weird stuff in every religious text, right? Lots of weird stuff in every religious text. What does OFC mean, Connor? Hey, what's up, Connor in chat? What's up, Dope in chat? Duck Dynasty Lost Son? Yeah, maybe. By the way, what do you think is disturbing in Islam? Just curiosity. I mean, it has an entire section dedicated to the laws and scope of punishment for slaves. So I don't see that as justice at all. That's basically, to me, the same thing as not only endorsing horrific acts, but it's the same thing as endorsing sort of no sort of clarity or no ideas at all. Just from what I would consider a modern perspective, I don't think it has to be Western, but from a modern perspective, I think there's a reason why people in the US or China don't see Sharia law as like politically viable. Oh, what's up, tacos? We got breakfast tacos in chat. Pineapple pizza shouldn't exist. Taco is one of the great atheist presuppositionalists on YouTube, folks. If you guys don't know Taco, definitely go check out Taco's channel. Let me see if I can. I'm like getting halfway through sentences. Let me go see if I can find Breakfast Tacos channel, and I'll post it in chat. I definitely mod on some Sundays on Breakfast Tacos channel. I get my daily dose of what's it called? Of atheist presuppositionalism, natural philosophy and naturalism, all kinds of great stuff. What the heck happened here? Here we go. Yeah, and Breakfast Tacos has also been doing tons of stuff with Amy Newman recently. I don't know if you know Amy, but she does modern day debate. She's been going to Taco's Sunday show called the Theist Helpline. It is available to attend on either YouTube or Discord. So if you guys like talking about religion, if you guys like having discussions and debates about science, I would highly recommend you go check out Taco's channel. And I'm super clumsy around here, but I am still pulling it up. The Layman Review says, what's the debate about? I don't know. I didn't finish typing a title. I'll talk about anything, guys. I'm going out with friends, so I gotta go. All right. All the cool kids are leaving. Somebody's blaming it on the headset. In Islam, having slaves is completely prohibited, so we didn't and don't even have slaves. It's always that way, isn't it? You always get that same answer. Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a discussion about the historical context of things that have been called, what is it, the word haram, or, if, kind of the most important basic precepts of Islam, I don't think it's the case that there's a holy book with perfect ethics that are compatible with modern philosophy. And yeah, Slim says, didn't Muhammad kill people who didn't believe in Islam? Zizo, if you want to, in chat, if you guys want to respond to that, it was actually the case, what I'll present to you guys, it was actually the case that a lot of the historical violence attributed towards Islamic empires, and all empires were violent, happened after Muhammad's death. So we talked about this on yesterday's stream a little bit, that there was an expansion to Asia Minor, Turkey, all kinds of places. What's going on, Taco?
Oh, hey, dude. Just saying hi.
Oh, hello.
I don't know. You always hop on my stream, so I figured I'd hop on and say hi. It helps fill in content when it's slow.
Yeah. I've been doing streams from my bedroom. I don't know how you got started on YouTube and how you kind of approach like important topics and stuff, but we've got a couple folks in chat right now talking about historical Islam, the theology of Islam. I'm sure you've heard quite a bit of it, both on Discord as well as your own channel.
Sorry, I had to walk away for a moment. Yeah, I am actually an expert on Islam.
You hear that, Zizo?
I'm a leading scholar on Islam when it comes to shroom usage and several topics around that.
Cool. Well, we do have a Bible verse, Psalms 137 verse 9. Read the Bible. I don't know. I think Zizo, you personally had just made a claim about there not being slavery in Islam at all. You did say unequivocally, and I'll pull this up, in Islam having slaves is completely prohibited. So we didn't and don't even have slaves. That's kind of an acid trip.
You want to hear something interesting about slavery in Islam? Islam allows sexual slavery, and Muhammad himself had sex slaves.
Well, I think that settles it. So what do you think?
A lot of people do in Islam is they'll commit taqiyya, which is like lying for the faith, and so they can lie as long as it's protecting their faith or promoting a positive image of Islam. And so they'll say things like, "There's no slavery in Islam." It's kind of like the lying for Jesus thing people do, where there's no slavery in the Bible.
Yeah, do you think, I've got a question. Do you feel this is something we've been talking about a little bit recently? Do you feel that social media, because you talk to people, you talk to a lot of people that are Christians, you talk to a lot of people that are Muslim, you talk to a lot of people that are agnostic or atheists, or that believe that we live in a giant wave function in the universe. I'm curious if you think social media and the presence of all these presuppositional, arguments for God's existence, about divine morality. I'm curious if you feel like in the modern context we've lost sight of what morality can mean.
That's a good point. Yeah. So when I talk to pretty much any theist about anything morality related, so if I'm like, I'm here to save the unrighteous individuals, the unrighteous theists that are rejecting the self-evident truth of our shared naturalistic, atheistic reality that's been revealed to all of sound mind through both natural and special revelation in an undeniable way, they immediately ask me, how do you know what unrighteous is? Or how do you know what unrighteousness is? Or how do you know what good and bad is? Or what's your standard for morality, right? But the problem is we have agreed upon definitions for almost all these words, right? And so what they're really asking you is, what is your standard for morality, right? How do you know, or what arbitrates morality, right? So they're asking, like, first off, what is this like source of objective morality? So they're generally presupposing objective morality, even if they don't realize it. And then they're trying to push you into some like objective morality position. But is asking, just ask yourself, is asking something like, what is your standard for morality? Is that even a coherent question? I mean, morality seems to be something that's done between agents and agreed upon between agents, right? Whether that's small scale, like two people exchanging goods to benefit each other rather than stealing from each other, or whether that's large scale, like a bunch of people agreeing upon state and local laws or national laws, right?
Sure.
And so it's like, is that even a coherent question? I mean, maybe if you're asking like about morality in regards to laws and whatnot, and breaking laws, and I guess that would be like the standard. But in general, between agents, like, who's the standard of morality between you and I? We have terms that we've agreed upon. We know what good means. We know what bad means. We know what unrighteous and righteous means. We know what all these terms mean, right? And so
Sure.
when we're engaging in some type of moral decision making towards the other person, there's not like an objective standard involved in that, right? It's not like there's somebody watching over our shoulders telling us, observing what's good or bad, and we're acting based off of our whim, right? But like I said, there's still like state and local laws which are agreed upon intersubjectively, right? And national laws which are agreed upon intersubjectively, right? I don't know where else to what else to say about it. I feel like that pretty much would shut down any of those arguments. I mean, I just feel like when they ask me stuff like that, they don't know what good or bad means, right? I mean, I've kind of stopped responding to that and just saying, you don't even know what good or bad means.
Yeah, and I mean, that's interesting. You bring up a good point in terms that irregardless, I hope our audience sees this as well, that irregardless of whether or not you personally have metaethical discussions about the Bible, it still makes a ton of sense when you're living in a society to talk about ethics and morality the way you just described, where we have two moral agents having a conversation. If I had to ask sort of a hard-hitting question, and this is maybe me indirectly standing up for some of the Muslims and Christians that are in chat, even though we agree on a lot of stuff, do you feel that when you're talking to people online, even when they get all out of that sort of lolcow or that LOL phase, whatever it might be, do you sort of feel that people are throwing biblical terms around like righteousness to try and skirt an important moral conversation? Or how should people view this dialogue, these types of dialogues that you're having on Discord and YouTube really all day? We've seen it, right?
I mean, there's a bunch of different positions on morality, right? I mean, you can be subjectivist, I think, emotivist, you can be a realist, you could be a non-cognitivist. Probably named a couple very similar positions there, but there's a lot of positions on morality, right? Just like there are on God concepts and Platonism versus other positions on abstract concepts. There's positions on everything in philosophy, right? And so you can't really like go in there saying that realism is true. What's your source of moral realism, right? I feel like that's not a fair discussion, because if any position was proven to be true, everybody would hold that position, right? And it's like, it seems to be people's opinions versus people's opinions when it comes to moral claims, whether that's claiming realism or just claiming what's right and wrong,
Yeah, and that's a good point, is that, it doesn't matter if we're talking on social media right now. It doesn't really matter if you and I were to go to Cambridge or Harvard or a community college to have this sort of same discussion. If you were still sort of here, like, if you and I are talking and we're talking about like moral realism or something, it's like, well, realism is still sort of the name of the game, right? It's almost that paper bag that you have to climb out of or get into. And so that seems like it creates a level playing field to some extent, from my perspective, that whether you're arguing for Christian ethics or you are supporting a an objective sense of secular morality, we're still both sort of funneling towards this single point.
Pack, we're talking about like moral realism versus moral, like there's a bunch of positions on it, right? But like moral realism versus non-cognitivism and subjectivism and any of the, I don't know how many positions there are on that, but a lot of positions on that.
Yeah, and morality and realism are two different things, but they don't have to be either, right? That's sort of the introduction to the conversation. Let me, like, if I have a
moral realism is just saying that there's like objective standards for morality, right? And so we're talking about that and specific positions around that. Of course, there's probably there's realism when it comes to like abstract objects or abstract concepts, right?
Yes,
Stuff
yes,
like that.
110%.
So those are completely different topics than what we're actually talking about here. Although I referenced those as, I guess, an analogy to try to explain my point better.
Yeah, and so, like, if you guys have heard of Lance Independent on YouTube, he does support sort of Pack Fresh's point here that morality and realism are two different things. He'll argue that you can have a moral stance, and that's not talking about like some deep metaphysical reality. It's just talking about a moral sense of things. And so, there is some position there. Even and so the sort of politics of having to be a realist. Well, if you're a Christian, unless you like, I don't see a lot of Christian existentialists on YouTube talking about Soren Kierkegaard. I don't see them having conversations with Nietzschean sort of atheists and stuff like this, and so if we're talking about something or nothing, and I also do want to just shout out Bob is here. We got our mod Bob here. Slim in chat, good to see you. David A, good to see you. Yeah, the wise man says, the wise man knows he's a fool. Bob already got pinned up once. He is our resident wise man and resident moderator here. Hula says Jesus is king in chat. What do you guys think? You guys can hop on stage if you guys want to join myself and Breakfast Tacos. Very lucky to have Breakfast Tacos. He's got a great channel. He's got like 3,000 really engaged subscribers. He's well known in the Discord universe. Amazing host, amazing producer of events and stuff like this.
You are too kind. I'm a nobody. I'm just another random spewing nonsense like everyone else.
Yeah. So believe the hype. Whether we're up here with nobody or somebody, guys, I do want you to, if you want, feel free. We're gonna pull up messages from chat. Tacos has a few more minutes. Happy to keep talking and stuff. And yeah, we've got room for a couple more people up on stage. So feel free to join. Bob asks the real question as well. He says, "What's good, gang? What is good, everybody? How is everybody doing tonight?" We did a short stream on Ducks Y earlier today. That was a lot of fun. If you guys want, take a second, tap the like button. If you guys want to subscribe, if you guys like a lot of sort of like, I don't know, combination of comedy, serious topics, that kind of stuff. We're just having a good time. And yeah, absolutely. I don't know where Zezo went. Zezo might have dipped out. Yeah. Slim's got a point he wants to respond to. He says, I think different. You want to expand? Yeah, myself or Breakfast Tacos can respond. Oh, whoops, that was the tail end of it.
I was just reading that. I think he makes a good point there. He's saying that morality prescribes values and obligations for normative claims, while realism describes factual existence. It's descriptive, so realism is saying that it has some type of objective existence in the universe, whether that's the laws of a divine mind or something governing the universe or whatever, right? I guess kind of like where T-Jump says that there's a moral field, right? So it'd be a real thing in the universe in that sense. Whereas morality prescribes values, just normative, like I don't know how better to explain that, right? That's a very good explanation, but they can't not be the same because ought and is are. I don't know what he's saying there, but I think he's saying that would solve the ought and is, or that would solve the ought and is gap, or that would be category error. I don't know what he's saying there. He needs to state that better, I think. But I'm with him. I'm with him. But that's kind of like where we started, right? It's just like a big misunderstanding of what morality is. So when they ask you, what's your standard for good? It seems kind of like a category error of a question, right?
Yeah,
no, that's the perfect amount of Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches, although I am not a doctor, and I am not encouraging you to eat that many, and I am not liable for any heart problems that might occur after eating that many breakfast sandwiches, because I'm never recommending that you eat. But I feel like that seems like a good number.
Yeah. My only contention with what Slim said is that, well, what if I have a unique view of well-being, right? So we're talking about moral philosophy. Anytime that I hear about moral philosophy, we hear this term well-being come up, and so yeah, maybe well-being is this normative thing, where it's sort of descriptive, but it seems to sort of blur the lines for me. Well-being seems like it's almost this like dualist object where you can describe what well-being is like, but it's also prescriptive, right? It doesn't seem like when we're talking about the wellness of another being, we're somehow superimposing this on reality, and it doesn't seem like it's contradictory with other versions or other descriptions of well-being. And in this sense, when I think of moral realism, like in the camp of like Sam Harris, I always think of this idea that values and obligations and normative claims are actually sort of the same. We talk about them differently, we signify the world differently, but we're still talking about the same thing. It's almost like well-being has this essential thing, some sort of like essentialness to it or whatever.
He did clarify too. He said you can't get moral duties ought merely from facts about reality is, proving they are different from what they addressed.
You can't get moral duties ought merely from facts about reality is. Yeah, maybe in some sense, if you have a biological or natural faculty that is towards something, right? If you have a faculty that essentially is prepositional, it's about agency. That to me seems like it's an ought. That it seems like it's an is and an ought, right? If it is the case, I can either pull the lever on the trolley problem or not pull the lever on the trolley problem. This sort of, it's difficult for me personally to think of well-being as not being this sort of font of what norms and natural philosophy actually look like. Seems like they're the same thing, and there's not a way to undermine it. That would be.
Then he said, objective moral duties require a moral lawgiver beyond human opinion, pointing to God as their source. And that's the problem I think that both of us have, is because, well, one, there's nothing showing that a God thing exists. Two, objective morality seems to be nonsensical, as it seems to be between, unless you're just saying that it exists. If you're talking about the existence of morality as a phenomenon, it's absolutely it's like an evolved trait amongst quite a few species, right? But that doesn't show any objective standards or anything. It's just saying that as a phenomenon, morality exists, right? And so, but like Slim and I would have different opinions on what objective morality means. And so, I know I said previously I'm thinking about becoming a moral objectivist. I I've thought about it a lot. I don't really care what people label my morality position as, because the fact of the matter is that it seems to be subjective or intersubjective, depending on the context, when you're actually engaging in moral decision making. And if it exists outside of a phenomenon, which I don't think it does, I don't even see how it could be a God thing. I think it's just a phenomenon. It's something we do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, even though I am myself, I've done atheist debates and stuff, you and I view this slightly differently. I think it's a little bit of an injustice when it appears that some moral facts do have as much evidence or reasons to believe as we do ordinary facts from natural philosophy. And I think that is because well-being is the base layer description. It is the sort of there's not a possible world where there's not an is-ought object that's living within sort of what the essence of a human is. And so as much as we make a judgment about being a self or something like that, me Duck, or you Breakfast Tacos, you or I are looking at some sort of decision involving moral agency. I think to me, I think that is a sort of what's it called? Oops. It's a difficult fact to overcome, right? I just switched on to some emo music too, but just from my point of view, it's like, well, look, I can switch my perspective. I can empathize with someone else's moral stance. I can use someone else's facts about the world, and we're still talking about is and oughts at the same time. We're both describing and prescribing. So who knows? Who knows?
Are you saying that you don't think humans could exist without morality?
Yeah, like I don't think philosophical zombies are ontologically possible.
I mean, would you be a pea zombie without morality?
Yeah, without morality, you would be a pea zombie.
I mean, I think that, without morality, I think that's definitely a I don't see what would stop humans from existing without morality. Maybe it's just not evolved different cognitive facilities, and that's just not part of our repertoire, right? Think of like an AI that's like Spock or something, right?
Yeah. But even like Spock, in the Star
like
Trek
Spock
lore,
doesn't have emotions. Emotions is just another
agent,
phenomenon, right? I mean, you could engage with people on a robotic basis.
Yeah, but he's not what's his name? He's not Worf, right? Worf is someone who
A Klingon.
Yeah,
Klingons are very emotionally driven.
Yeah, emotionally and conflict driven. Right?
Vulcans have no emotions, right? And so that would be an example of a hypothetical race that would exist without that phenomenon. I don't see why it couldn't be any different with like some hypothetical species, right? Just without morality instead, and it's more robotic engagement, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel I think you're missing complexity, right? I don't see my ability to write on top of what you're asking me to think morality is.
Like Borg would be hive mind, right?
Yes, absolutely. Borg,
like would there be morality within the hive mind? I don't know. I don't think
their whole
so.
society is hive mind, right? Their whole
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if morality would be possible there, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Pack Fresh had a girlfriend who was Klingon. Who was a Klingon. Yeah, I don't know. Like it seems silly to say that like something like Red Pill doesn't have a moral stance, even if the reason that most people think that like red pill mindset is unethical. Like there's a reason in the world that it's not ethical to do this like super hyper masculinity thing, right? Yeah, like it might be the case that there's injustices against males in American society or something. But the sort of like other side of that is like um yeah, you have to be able to take someone's moral claims and together fill out that worldview. If you're not filling out a worldview, um then yeah, there absolutely is a problem with this, is not. See, and Bob's bringing, I don't know, maybe Bob isn't actually an old man. Bob is like the 18-year-old guru we've all been searching for. He says, David A, technically you can make a horse drink water, but is it worth the effort? Yeah, I don't know. Is it worth the effort?
I'd say the most compelling question as to why anybody should be an atheist, because it looks like you have a few theists in the chat, would be uh, how can something come from nothing, right? Like, I don't think I could ever be at least like an Abrahamic theist, right? Because something obviously can't come from nothing, from both philosophical and scientific discussion, right? Or thoughts. I mean, I'm not talking about like quantum nothing. Quantum nothing is full of energy. That's a different scientific term. But like philosophical nothing, absolute nothing, I think that alone is enough to uh, annihilate any creation ex nihilo position.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good point. What do you guys think? Oh, I'll be honest. I thought this conversation was going to stream out on YouTube mobile. That's where most of my audience is. I appreciate everybody who showed up. Um, if this showed up in your algorithm or whatever, because you guys subscribe, I appreciate you guys. And I'm glad Tacos joined, obviously, and all this other stuff. But talking about being upset about silly things, I don't know.
You popped up on my stream. That's how I saw you.
Oh,
Or on
cool.
my YouTube.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Um, Yeah, the fun thing about I don't know if you've done YouTube mobiles. You've probably heard like the same stuff in Discord and stuff, but I always get called homeless Jesus and like the drug addict liver king and stuff like that. I love that kind of I uh, I love that kind of stuff. I love
Yeah,
hearing from
everyone
people.
asks me how much I weigh.
Oh. How much you weigh? Oh, because the AI videos and stuff,
Yeah,
all that stuff.
it's okay. I don't mind telling them I weigh 100 pounds and can't get out of my bed.
Yeah, guys, go ahead and subscribe to Breakfast Tacos channel if you guys are on. I said I was gonna drop your link in chat, and then I didn't.
Oh, it's not a big deal either way. I'm just
No, but
chilling, man.
if we have an anemic tacos, it means we don't have a happy tacos. We don't have an energized breakfast tacos. We don't have a focused breakfast tacos. We don't have a diligent breakfast tacos here. So we are going to. And if you guys want breakfast tacos, I will mention he's very beautifully monetized on YouTube. He puts in a ton of time and effort into his own channel and stuff. So if you guys like this stuff, if you guys like these types of conversations, I would highly encourage you to check him out. Consider purchasing a membership, or if you attend one of his streams. Yeah, you can always send in a super chat for either Tacos himself or one of his panelists. So check out Tacos if you guys want to subscribe. You atheists, or what's your disposition there? Yeah, Beto. So Mr. Tacos here is one of the most known. He does a lot for the atheist community. You can check out his channel if you want to see what he does. I love talking about myself. I love talking about theology. I love talking uh, about. I'll talk about atheism as well. I don't mind politics. So if I do believe I pinned the stream link in chat. If you want to have a Beto, if you want to talk, have a debate with Taco or a discussion with Taco about atheism and Christianity, feel free. We've got more room up on stage, so yeah, feel free to come on up, post a comment in chat, whatever it is. You'll get an honest answer here, an honest conversation for sure. For sure.
Yeah, we'd love to have you up here. We're both nice, and Duck is pretty cool. I've known him for a little while now. He's a pretty cool, nice dude, and he's pretty knowledgeable. I think he knows more than me on a lot of topics, actually. He's pretty knowledgeable.
It's all it's all chat GPT, right? It's all chat GPT. We I'm a I came up with my grand plan. You might appreciate this actually. So I'm going to, when I do like show notes or something, I'm basically just Googling stuff. And when I hit 100,000 subscribers, if I ever hit 100,000 subscribers, I'm gonna try and just sell basically these like really crappy, shitty Google documents to people, and I'm gonna call it like how I got my hundreds of thousand subscribers. Get 600 pages show notes or whatever it is. Get 600 pages of show notes, and yeah, who knows? I'll sell it with like an hour of like FaceTime or something for like $1,000, and it's just gonna
Dude,
be
I'm not even at 2,500. It is a long and arduous process and a grind.
yeah. YouTube's really nice sometimes. Yeah, subscribers and monetization. But yeah, it's like that's like less than, I would say, less than 10% of it. A lot
You're
of the
almost
people,
at super chat, so you're going to be there soon. You're going to be able to make a little bit of
yeah,
side money soon.
yeah, one day. But yeah, I don't know if you know any of the grifters in the YouTube universe. I've been hanging
Oh
out
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah. I'm
Sarah the
very
Raging
familiar with a
Tomato.
bunch of them.
Hell yeah, yeah. Jim Bob is I don't know if Jim Bob's ever been on your show or if you've seen him around the Discord or anything, but I've been hanging out with a bunch of those guys, getting some time on their channels. It's cool. I like supporting people if they want to make money, if they want to do it full time. Cool, good for you guys. But I'd rather spend time talking about whatever, whatever.
I,
I didn't
I
spend the
I know
last.
who you're calling grifters, and yeah, I get what you're saying when you call them grifters, but I think a lot of them aren't really like. Think of it like this: they're providing a service which takes their time, and they're requesting money for their services. Right? That's it. How you do it is irrelevant. Whether you're doing it to remove people from a stage because it's $5 to remove somebody from a panel or something, or $10 to add somebody on. You call that grifting, whatever. They're providing a service, right? The people in the audience want to pay money to remove people from the stage, right? Or what? Like Jim Bob's a cartoonist. He does
Yeah,
satirical cartoons that are right leaning. He produces music, and I don't think he produces. He sings and stuff. And he's a performer, right? And he's
yep.
a comedian. Uh, like Andrew Wilson, even Andrew Wilson is a right leaning talking head, right? I mean, they're all providing services, right? I after being on YouTube, and don't get me wrong, I don't make good money on YouTube at all. It's horrible, but um, being monetized, I kind of see like I get what they're doing, right? They want to
Because
be.
you work, right? Just for context, not trying to dox or get into your personal life, but in case anyone here is considering YouTube or something, you also have a job outside of YouTube. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
The YouTube
Cool.
does not pay the bills.
Yeah. Also, a shout out to Jim. Good to see you again. Um, we got Jim in the audience. Life's a trip, carnal. Yeah, for people who don't speak any Spanish, unless I'm misinterpreting Jim, They might have read that life's a carnal trip, bro. Dar man, life's a little bit carnal. Are you guys doing numerology in chat right now? I haven't kept up with this conversation, which I feel a little sad about. Pack Fresh might be doing some like formal philosophy with everybody. That's pretty cool. Yeah, the only number that needs to exist is a 1 or a 3 or a 2. However you build the mathematical system, the base. Yeah, that stuff's kind of interesting. Talking about like formal system, formal mathematics and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy because at some point, if you like take a big concept and want to turn it into numbers or something, then it's kind of cool to know. It's kind of cool to know what it is. Beto Parades says, "Made it back, LOL." Do you guys ever do politics on your channel? Do you guys ever? Well, you're in Canada, right? But so you guys don't have to worry about like Gator Getmo. You don't have to worry about all the ice bull crap and all that stuff that we got going on. All the MAGA stuff. Yeah, abstract stuff is fun. Abstract stuff is cool. How do you guys solve an abstract problem like 2 plus 2? That's highly cognitively advanced.
I think there is a system of mathematics which, as it's using that formula, that you could probably reference to find the rules to understand how to do that problem.
Yeah, I don't know. That stuff is a little bit beyond me. A little bit over my head.
You're having a hard time getting people up here, man.
Yeah, we
You need
should
a
be
theist. Where's your
Nah.
theist? Are
Yeah,
they all
I don't know.
hiding?
Yeah, does anyone want to have a discussion? Not a lol cow debate or anything like that. I know I've got. Who was it? Somebody was making fun of me for. They said I had a Wendy's headset. Who wants to have a discussion though? You guys want to come up, talk about religion with tacos? You guys can
Looks like
debate
you
one
have
of the
like a
best
work from
YouTube
home
debaters.
headset.
Yeah, it's just Logitech, dude. It's just Logitech. Yeah, okay, side question. Tacos, what do you think of the Wendy's mic?
I mean, it
What are
gets
you
the job
using?
done, man. What's wrong with the Wendy's mic?
But what are you using right now? What do you personally have? What do you use like
I
uh
have
like a studio microphone,
let me see.
condenser or something?
I have Steel Series Sonar headset and a Blue Yeti microphone.
Blue Yeti, cool. That's cool. That gets the job done for sure. Is that digital or is that analog, or is it just
I I have
a
no idea.
$50 mic?
It's a big ass mic. I have it like hanging up over my desk and with a arm and sticking out in front of my mouth, and I'm sitting in like a nice lounge chair, and so I'm like talking up into it. It's got a little cover on it thing that I have sticking out that I guess blocks. I don't know. They recommended I got it, but it blocks sound or something, and then it connects with a cable into my computer. Is that
That
digital?
works.
I
I
don't
think
know. It's
it's
nice.
probably digital. It's probably digital. So here's my two facts about microphones is that the first there's always a frequency pickup range. So like the lower tones of your voice where it's as well as the sort of higher frequencies. Digital mics typically have I think a lower range, but can sometimes have cleaner audio effects, and can, like, some of them automatically do like small voice compensation things. My other microphone fact, that I know is, well, it's just crazy if you think about. Uh, I mean, I know everyone here is not an aspiring social media superstar, but if you think of like a full studio, everything that like CNN or Fox has, um, there's some combination of 2 or 3 products that you can research and purchase that recreate that, basically that whole studio. Um, so, um, but you can also picture the drive-through of Wendy's, right? That's the other way that a lot of people go about doing this, is that if you are the type of person that, you think of excellence, you think of perfection, you think of following the process, it's not wrong to picture yourself, um, you know, doing your day job while you're doing your night job, and just recreating that exact experience. That's actually a very viable way to go. It's very viable. Oh snap! We have a caller, Taco. I don't know if you got a pop up, but we have Beto from chat. Beto from chat. Let's
David
see.
A is saying that me supporting the Wendy's mic and having a Blue Yeti invalidated everything I've said. That's fair. I had a pretty nice headset before this one too. I'm about sound quality, but like I said, there's nothing wrong with what you're running. You sound perfectly fine, dude. Like I don't see why anybody would complain about your headset at all.
I appreciate it. We got Sandy in chat. Um, Good to see you, Sandy. I'm Duck. This is Duck's Y. We just had Beto join our call. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing
Can
all
you
right. What's going on, man?
can you hear me?
You sound great. Yeah,
Oh,
you
you
sound
can't.
good.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. How you guys doing?
Good, good. This is the first call-in show on the Ducks Y channel. And yeah, um, taking calls. I know you were asking about religion earlier, but open to whatever
Yeah.
topics
Yeah. I,
that
I
you
was
want to
kind
talk
of,
about.
just curious. Like, what's your guys' favorite subject on atheism?
Tacos, do you want to go first?
Is there a favorite sub? Is that a? I mean, atheism is just not believing in any gods or uh, knowing that no gods exist. I mean, it encompasses a handful of positions, but well, I don't know what your favorite thing would
Well,
be. There, it's
I've
just
got I've had a lot of questions around like not like Christianity. Christianity's not necessarily a very stable subject. I mean, it's a trying to argue that the Bible is, in the infallible word of some instantiation of God is not that strong of an argument. But what do you guys think about like the philosophical systems, like Platonism or any of the more ancient Greek systems in comparison and their opinions about God? What are you guys thoughts on that?
seems like an old way of thinking of things to me. I mean, some people still hold to those positions, and I mean, I get it; they're valid philosophical positions. Um, but like Platonism, for example, is totally unfalsifiable. It's just claiming that there's an abstract realm where shapes and whatnot, whatever abstract concept you're thinking of exists. And so when you're like thinking of it, you reference it. Um, I, I lean more towards with consciousness where it's like I think the correct way to describe it would be like a supervenient relationship on the physical. So it's like a byproduct of the physical, um,
Mhm.
and those would exist within or as a part of that consciousness, but as like a conceptual nature, not like something we're referencing from an abstract realm.
Sure. So modern physicists kind of remove the idea that there's anything psychological about it, but accept, like Platonic realism, for example, that's kind of the foundation that we discover mathematics as opposed to invent it. seems to be the position for a good number of our Nobel Prize winning physicists. So they seem to accept part of that. Obviously,
most people,
from a physicalist point of view.
yeah. So like most people wouldn't hold to Platonism nowadays, although I mean, there are
Roger
still a lot of
Penrose,
realists.
Heisenberg, Wolfgang
I mean
Pauli.
that doesn't matter if you name individuals, right? I mean, you could name individuals on the other side, right? It doesn't matter who you name.
Well,
I'm just saying, like
Penrose is
most
worth
people
naming.
don't hold to Platonism, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying is probably about over half of the Nobel Prize winning physicists in the last 100 years do. Not to like traditional Platonism, but to
So what?
Platonic realism.
Isaac Newton was a Christian.
That's somewhat unrelated to the the philosophy of science, though, as it's arguable today, though, right? It's what I'm saying is Platonic realism is an arguable framework for modern physics, for contemporary physics.
I truly don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, it is.
I really don't know if you're just making claims or not right now. And
Yeah,
No,
so
not at all.
So it is a little bit, right? Because it's difficult to imagine okay, so we can create mathematical equations that represent a wave, a particle. We can measure particles. We can suppose the system that it came from. And outside of Hume, it seems to work pretty well. It's predictive. It's all this other stuff. And then with modern cosmology, when we start talking about like the holographic principle and that the information, the equations we're talking about also have a scalar or a two-dimensional sort of, there's a different way to
Sure, the
talk about the
boundary,
same mathematical
the whole
reality.
boundary theory. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we imagine that these are particles that can be anywhere, that have a non-zero probability of being anywhere in the universe, in like our space-time, right? That sort of draws out this whole picture. And so in terms of just whether it's Platonic realism and are if there's reasons or justifications to believe in that sort of idea, well, if we're picturing all of space-time in these tiny fundamental objects, if it's the case that the objects, as we call them, objects, or the particles themselves, are aren't required to be more referential or more relational than the mathematics themselves really encapsulate or entail. That ultimately leads to like Platonic realism to some extent.
Yeah, when you're talking about the information
conceived.
on the boundary, that the entire cosmos is actually found at the two-dimensional horizon in information, and it's basically projecting
so
back
I
into
think
the bulk.
Beto is just saying stuff now, but I would have to disagree with you, Duck, because like physics is descriptive, right? And mathematics is a system that we've created to describe and explain things and solve problems and that type of thing, right? And so it's something that we've developed brick by brick, right? It's not like we had access to some mathematical state in the universe or whatever that allowed us to create this system of mathematics, right? And we've created physics off of that to describe things that exist and the way that things interact, right? And so, like, us describing.
Oh, whoops! What just happened?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Still.
Whoops. Sorry, that was my bad.
Describing
that was my bad.
The way stuff works is physics, right? But those numbers aren't like existing at the boundary conditions, right? That's just how we're describing the stuff currently, right? And another species could create a different system of mathematics and describe the same phenomenon differently, right? But I mean, it would still be if you were to, the phenomenon would still be the same. So if you did your math there, it would be describing it with your math, right? And then they would describe it with their math, and it would be different system of mathematics, but it would be describing the same thing.
Yeah. That's
both of them could be accurate.
That's kind of getting pretty general about just the symbolic system of math, and how that it most certainly could have a variant number of different ways of coming to the same measurements, a little bit like language, right? What he brought up, I think, is interesting, though, because Susskind, Leonard Susskind, was the actual string theorist 2012, wrote a paper called the multiverse version of quantum mechanics. And in that paper, he had actually kind of defined a lot of the boundary in information physics that are kind of requisite to his earlier work in holographic theory. Are you guys a fan of that at all? The holographic theory that him and
Do you know what the
Beto put together?
Okay, why don't you tell us what the holographic principle is? I'd be interested in hearing that from you.
Sure. So basically, the Big Bang, right, as it happened, with space continuing to expand faster than light. At the point where it begins to expand faster than light, where light can no longer actually expand at that speed. Again, light within space is the speed limit. What Susskind says is at that point, which is basically where the cosmological constant disappears, that there's a gravitational back reaction back into the universe, and that the information that's found on the boundary, which is the spherical boundary of our visible universe, basically bangs back into the bulk, is what they call it, the bulk, or our actual cosmos that we're in, and that the instantiation of matter as we experience it is actually non-local and holographic, which is fairly
Do you
well
think that's what the
accepted by
holographic principle is
string
saying?
theorists, at least. Say that again?
You think that's what the holographic principle is saying, as posed by Leonard Susskind?
Yeah, well, at least from the paper that he had written that I'd read.
So the holographic principle is actually in relation to the volume of an object or something, right? And so it would be that all of the information of an object is encoded within the boundary conditions, right? So if you're thinking
Right.
about like a cereal box, you could hypothetically calculate everything inside of that cereal box from the boundary conditions.
Yeah, based
Although,
on its boundary, right? But the furthest boundary itself being the actual cosmic horizon of the universe, which is the largest boundary, right? Which then
okay,
comes
and now
down
so
to
you're
solar
agreeing with
systems
me,
and
and then you're
whatever else.
acting like
Yeah, I
you were
agree with
still
you.
correct when you were incorrect in your statement there. Everything you said there was totally irrelevant in regards to that because of how simply you can explain the boundary condition with the cereal box, which shows
Okay,
that
so first of
you.
all, I'm not
I
incorrect
think
about
you're
his
just.
theory. So
I think you've done a light reading of a bunch of stuff, and you're a theist that is trying to use. Oh, you're a theist, right? Like you're a Christian.
no, sir.
What position do you hold?
If I held any kind of core position, it's probably honestly more Hindu.
Hindu? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
mostly.
So what would be the point in misinterpret? So do you really want to understand that stuff? And do you really care about what any of this means and what it's being used for? Or are you trying to reinforce your position?
Well, what I understand
Wait, hold
of
on. Can I interject 1 second? Do you guys think
sure.
I look like Do you guys think I look like Liver King?
Maybe a little bit.
Liver King,
Yeah,
Angel. The
skinnier
other one I've
version of liver game, sure.
the other one I've gotten a couple times today is homeless Jesus. And sometimes people just ask if I do drugs. So take your pick. Take your pick uh which one it's supposed to be, right? Yeah, sorry guys, I didn't mean to interrupt. I swear to goodness I'm listening as well.
So you've mentioned several times that I'm not able to instantiate my claims in the discussion we're having. So what are you talking about exactly there?
I mean, I've addressed each one individually as they come up. I don't see a need to repeat myself further.
Well, I actually didn't quite understand where in the discussion I had claimed anything that was false.
Yeah. You were bringing up the holographic principle like it was going to support something that you were going to bring up, and then
so you're straw
you
manning
started
on
talking
this and
about
saying
a lot of
I haven't come to any
things that
conclusions. How's that a possibility?
wouldn't be a part of a explanation from somebody that actually understands the holographic principle. And so all the point was that I was making there is that there seems to be a lack of understanding of what the holographic principle
But
actually
what
means.
exactly did I
And
say
then when
that led
I
you to that?
clarified what it actually means,
Well, yeah. See, I
you
understood
agreed
it the
with
same
me,
way
and then
you
you were
did,
going to
though.
continue
You don't
like
understand.
you
I
were
understood it
correct
the
in what
same
you
way
were
you did.
saying.
It's
And
the
so I
boundary
wanted to be
itself
very
encodes the
clear
information of the
that what
bulk.
you were saying there was unrelated to what you
Yeah, but
should have
you
been
couldn't.
saying to
You
the
can't name
holographic
exactly
principle if
what
you
it is
actually
because we
understood what
didn't
it
have
meant.
a
So
disagreement
can I
about
let
what
me
it
hold on,
was.
guys, 1 second. I want to clarify one thing. Sorry, Beto, just for a second, you're going down to the bottom of the screen. And so, yeah, I think the holographic principle, just so the audience is sort of understanding this debate and discussion, it sits in a space where you have physicists like Sean Carroll, as well as Breakfast Tacos, right? So Tacos is in good company, that argue for this, this wave function of the universe version of reality, where particle physics is where we make measurements, where we have some sort of almost like an arithmetic version of reality that can make that desk lamp in front of you. It can make your cell phone. It can make all these things, and describes a world of many worlds. And so the holographic principle is a little bit at odds with this. Um, it's just a different sort of approach. When you find a simpler, perhaps more expansive, a cosmologically relevant sort of version of reality, which is what Beto's talking about right now, you end up with a slightly different sort of perspective on what actually makes up the universe. But if you guys have seen, one of the sort of close references is like Max Tegmark talks about a mathematical universe. That tends to be a little bit closer to this holographic idea, where the fundamental objects you have are actually informational. They behave as information versus behaving as things like we see in the double slit experiment, which again is the position that tacos as well as physicists like Sean Carroll often advocate for. So sorry, I didn't mean to get in the middle or interject.
Oh, no
Back
worries
to
on
you
my side.
guys.
And
Yeah.
just to be clear, when you say information, you're saying physics information, not philosophical information, because those are two entirely different terms with different meanings, correct?
Yeah, of course, but that's where I was trying to get around to like asking a specific question concerning a crossover that seems to at least be uncanny, at least that the definition that you've made of the holographic boundary,
That's a
I
standard
know
definition
is
of the
not something
holographic
I have any
principle.
arguments with. As far as, I mean, like, in other words, even the walls of this room are projecting into the actual third dimensional bulk space within it. I mean, that's the whole argument, that it's not just like the physical boundaries of a particular individual or an atom of just the earth or solar system, but that all actual two-dimensional boundaries are projecting in. So that's the standard case. And with the way the paper that Susskind wrote, he was talking specifically about the largest boundary in our cosmos being at the light limit, where space starts traveling faster than light and creates a two-dimensional, infinitely hot boundary that in whatever fourth dimensional terms, which, because space is actually flat, right, is a sphere as far as how we would see it third dimensionally, and that sphere itself is banging back in on what he calls the gravitational back reaction, which is what's causing the holographic experience, or somewhat the movie that we are experiencing in the world as holographic. And the question I was getting around to is, does that not at least sound similar to the same description as Plato gives to the forms that are found
Oh,
at the
you
boundary, that
misrepresented
are?
it again. So the holographic principle is saying that the boundary conditions of an object can describe the, as you said, the bulk, all the stuff that exists within those boundary conditions. And so it's saying you can describe everything that exists with the boundary conditions. Ergo, you have a cereal box. You can calculate everything within that cereal box from the box itself. If you measure the box, you can calculate everything within that. That's all the holographic principle is saying.
Well, no, that's a portion of it. I mean, in the paper specifically, he talked about how we actually have a informational double that's living at the boundary at the cosmic horizon, and that we're not aware of it due to complementarity. because we're aware of this experience that we're having here. But the way he puts it is there's
The
an
actual useful part, I don't know about that, but the actual useful
bro,
part
it's not about
of,
knowing about it. It's just what he
but
says.
the
That's
actual
all I'm saying.
useful part of the holographic principle is what I've gone over with you and how it's used in quantum physics, and it's been used on black holes. It
Right.
is something that is tested and seems to work so far. That's it. It calculates, or it's hypothetically, you're able to calculate all of the information, which is the I guess like the different how do you describe this? Like the different states that are measurable or whatever within the system, or the within the, if you want to see the boundary, whatever. But it allows you to calculate all the, supposedly allows you to calculate all the information within the boundary, right? And so it seems to work on black holes, right? Which we think might be a similar state or whatever to the early conditions in regards to being able to calculate it like that with the boundary conditions. And so all this other stuff you're saying there, I don't know the relevancy of it, and I don't know enough about the what you're talking about there, holographic. To agree or disagree there. What I'm saying is the holographic principle, as it's used in physics, is saying that the information that is encoded within the boundary can be calculated from the boundary condition. So you should be, if the holographic, which it seems to work on black holes, but if the holographic principle is true and holds, you should be able to calculate everything within the universe from the boundary conditions.
Right.
Excuse me. Now, I'm not sure if that means you can get a theory of everything from boundary conditions, but I think hypothetically you could, if the holographic principle is true. But there might be some other variables in there we can't account for, or something with the grand scope of the universe, right? But
yeah, it's
seems
somewhat
like,
immeasurable for sure.
it seems like you're mentioning some totally irrelevant stuff that I don't know.
Bro, that's like every,
if
that's
what you're
the middle of
saying
every
is
sentence
true,
you
and even
speak.
if he said that stuff, it wouldn't matter, because that's not
It wouldn't
what
matter
the
in what way.
holographic
It
principle
wouldn't
is
matter
being
in
used
what way.
for. It would be totally irrelevant.
To what exactly, though? To what subject?
Who cares if matter is some type of holographic projection, which is not even what the holographic principle says. The holographic principle, once again, is about the information being encoded within the boundary conditions.
Right, and the experience in third dimensional space is non-local. I mean, that's all connected, right?
I don't understand what you're trying to say here.
I know, and it's irrelevant, and it's not important.
Like,
listen, guys, this has just been an odd conversation. I'm gonna wish you well. You guys take care.
Like,
you know, have fun. Good luck with your channel.
You're bringing up irrelevant,
I'm good, bro.
rather than actually trying to engage in a good faith conversation.
Nah, bro. No. You just keep attempting to use every sentence that you're saying to say what I'm saying has no meaning, or is worthless, or is incorrect, or unusable. It's just a way in which you're communicating. It's your style, and it's good. It doesn't really
neither of us are quantum
an actual
physicists,
intelligent conversation where we can have a share of ideas, and we can actually pin that off of each other and have a good conversation.
And so the rest of the stuff that you're
your
saying
whole job here is just to shut me down at every point, and that's just what it is. It's just not really intelligent, dude. So I'm
accept or listen to, right?
Yeah, I'm good. Take care, buddy.
Oops, can you guys hear me again?
Hear you. Oh,
I can hear me again. Thanks, Beto. I appreciate you coming up, and it was definitely a spirited debate between you guys. Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, I personally wish you guys had been able to get a little further. You know, maybe instead of like a mobile stream, at some point in time, we can set up like a panel or something to talk about it, because there were interesting points. I felt Beto knew quite a bit about about the holographic principle and stuff like that. But that distinction that you were asking for the philosophical, the philosophical versus the mathematical description of information, and why should we believe that there's a description in complexity that's not about classical mechanics, right? That's a hard question to answer for everybody. And I think that you were right to sort of bring that stuff up. But yeah, this is partially, and just for the audience real quick too, and we'll get back to whatever in a second. But yeah, this is one of the reasons I love doing just like, not these sort of open panel shows, but if you guys want to like and subscribe, we do mobile style broadcasts where we can talk about physics, we can talk about P. Diddy, we can talk about whatever, and sort of getting to the point where, if somebody has an opinion about physics or whatever, we'll bring it up on screen. We can talk about Newton and all that stuff. But yeah, information is, kind of it's a difficult distinction to sort of find and have remain useful. I'm still working on that, and I've been doing physics now for like the last 3 or 4 years.
From my understanding, information in physics is just like a distinguishable state. I guess would be a pretty bad explanation. And then in philosophy, it would be like the content of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Here if I have, so this isn't the best example, but if somebody's building a to-do list about this, you can see I've got a couple sheets of paper here, and so my understanding of it, information when we talk about it in physics is modeled as a scalar, which is just it's 2 dimensions, and so we're sort of talking about uh, a structure that fits in a different, it can fit in a different apparatus than traditional 4D space-time and Minkowski space. Um, and so information, when we think about it, like geometrically, what does it entail? Well, it doesn't entail that much, but it entails relatability to lots of things. And so I think what the more like applied, maybe this is like, and not to be too red pill, but like applied actual science, experimental sort of red pill physics is like, yeah, when you get to de Sitter space, when we're talking about the boundaries, we're talking about the actual laws of physics and cosmology changing because we're talking about information in space differently, information in space a little bit differently. And by the time you get out there, like there's no more Einstein, there's no classical mechanics, there's no way to sort of sum and add particle physics to see if we're still living in a relatable world. And some people like that. I personally like thinking about it. I don't know if I have a belief about it, but I like thinking about it. But yeah.
It's all fun to talk about and learn about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've just noticed a lot of people conflate information in science and philosophy, and it creates pretty significant issues because when you're using the wrong definition for terms, it leads you to the wrong conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the counterintuitive claims when we talk about information, um, like one weird idea is that like the actual structure of emergent space-time might be more important. It might be more important when we end up doing cosmology. And if we picture sort of tiny dancers on a tiny stage, and that's what space is, right? That's the background we're on or something. not stars, but like particles and information. It's like, well, if information is more operable in an environment, is more accurately representing reality, or creates the physics that someone wants when there's little wormholes everywhere, right? You know, everything is like deeply quantum. It's almost absurd to say there's any 4D space-time. Like, cool, maybe that's right. You know, but who knows? What like, there's still people that believe that particle physics and you know, the classical mechanics of Einstein are going to be unified one day, right? And that would be convenient because the universe, through astrophysics and lots of disciplines, lots of subdomains of physics, operates within that tiny space, that you know,
I
that
think
tiny
a theory
space
of
that
everything is possible, but I'm also an idiot online, right? That doesn't mean that I think we're ever going to achieve it, but I do think one is possible and we could possibly achieve it, right? But once again, that doesn't mean that we're going to get there, or I think we'll get there anytime soon, right? But I mean, we've created Lambda CDM, uh, which
what's
is a
lambda C
model.
what's
It's
lambda
a
CDM?
theory of most stuff, with called dark matter as the dark matter in there, and it's got it uses the cosmological constant to map the expansion. I mean, it's pretty cool. It lacks physics, or quantum physics, and it doesn't unify the forces, right? They think that a theory of everything is going to unify the forces, explain gravity, quantum gravity, and then connect all the way up to the higher level stuff. Like, you should be able to explain basically from the boundary conditions to today with it through math, right? And everywhere in the universe with it, right? And so we would have to do a lot more measurements, I think, to get to that point. But like with dark matter, um, they what was it? They had an they used to do WIMPs, but sounds like there's a good study that shows that SIMPs, I forget what SIMP stands for, strongly interacting matter particles, or dark matter particles, or something like
Oh,
that. But
okay.
something like that. But
Yeah.
there's a good study for that right now. But like, we don't know everything right now, but we're learning more. Measurements keep getting better. So
Yeah.
I think that they'll be able to improve upon theories of everything and either get pretty close, or most of the way there, right, at some point. And I think it'll be a lot sooner than we think. But who knows if it'll ever be 100% accurate, right?
Yeah.
That seems unlikely.
I don't know if it was you. Someone in chat earlier, I thought, mentioned lambda CDM or whatever it is. I'm looking for it, but I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Maybe I'm just imagining things. This is my Socratic remembering or something like that. Whatever. My Socratic remembering moment.
Yeah, it's just the mostly, or
Maybe it was
not mostly.
Beto.
It's the most accurate model we have right now.
Ah. Well, most people like that. Hey, JB, what's up? Good to see you, brother. We got JB in chat. JB's the real unk, reminding us, stay cool, don't do whatever it is. um, Sizzle Moonsong, good to see you again. Uh, so long, and thanks for all the fish. We've got someone whose cosmological opinion is 42 in chat. 42. But yeah,
That's
if anybody,
based.
it's very based. If anyone wants to come up, talk about, who knows, politics, Trump, we have a Canadian on stage with us. So if anybody wants to talk politics, this is a good theory. Aaron Williams, thanks for hanging out in chat. I see you, appreciate you. Appreciate everyone, actually. This is a theory that says the Orion belt lines line up with pyramids in Egypt. That's cool. We don't do flat earth stuff that much here. I don't know if that's consistent with the physics of a flat earth, but just it's whatever it is. So Ryan,
I just
or
uploaded
Aaron
a flat Earth
Williams,
video, a
do you?
recording of some flat Earthers. I forgot about it until you just mentioned that. I need to get that out tonight.
Oh, it
I
sounds
have it
like a
uploaded and
great
everything. I
video.
just got to type in the description and it's good to go.
Yeah, it sounds like a great video. It's interesting. I've seen. Okay, I've seen two documentaries I'll bring up. You guys can let me know if it's right. Um, but one documentary talks about how the pyramids in Egypt were impossible to build, and the other talks about beer in Egypt. So um, I know, and it basically states that the brewing process and being able to preserve stuff through alcohol is what made society possible, which is what most people go for in the first place. So, um, I don't know if either are great watches, but that's how deep my physics and philosophy brain is. I'll whatever. I'll go into a topic for 3 or 4 months sometimes because I'm a 35-year-old adult and I have nothing else to do. I don't know if that's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Uh, we've got a list of notable physicists from Beto Paredes, um, Roger Penrose, Paul Dirac, Albert Einstein, Eugene Wigner, Erwin Schrödinger, Frank Wilczek, Subramanian Chandrasekhar, Steven Weinberg, and Abdus Salam have expressed views aligned with the Platonic area. Yeah, yeah. Um, just yeah. I think it's great to learn about the great physicists who have done things. It's also great to understand, kind of what's happening in science. Have multiple explanations for theories and ideas too. I don't want to beat up on Plato. I don't want to beat up on Beto right now at all. I don't want to beat up uh, on Beto, uh, because yeah, like if there's Platonic idealism, that's cool. But we also see really smart people like Donald Hoffman talking about these consciousness sort of centric ideas about theories of everything or metaphysical theories. We see people like Bernardo Kastrup talking about analytic idealism. Um, and so just keeping in mind that there's always these currents and subcurrents, um, I think it's really cool to imagine instead of fundamental objects, we have, idealized representations. Um, you know, it's just hard. Instead of determining a lot of this stuff by sort of these pragmatic movements in physics, what's the actual reasons or evidence someone has to believe something? Is it explanatory? Can you spend 4 months thinking about it? Yeah, Bernardo is cool. Bernardo is the man. Um, that's cool. Beto is uh, a protected species in
I
philosophy.
don't I
There's,
don't support
but yeah,
Bernardo.
go for it. You don't like Bernardo at all?
No, I was just saying I don't support him. He's a whack job. In my opinion.
Yeah. Uh, Analytic idealism. I don't know. How often do people actually talk about like base metaphysics theories? Not that often. Um, they don't actually that often. Not really. Um, there's reasons for it, but there are reasons for it.
I can send you his if I can find it, I can send you his what was it, his dissertation or whatever. He wrote a like a dissertation on analytic idealism. It's like what he did, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, maybe longer ago. His big thing. But I don't know. It doesn't jive with me. I have different positions on almost everything, and consciousness being fundamental seems super kooky to me. I mean, if evidence was presented for the position, I'd be willing to examine it. But everything I've seen is absolute nonsense, and he seems very kooky.
Hey, Bob and Packfresh, please, if you guys can't discuss things nicely, there's no otherizing. Packfresh, we have one other mod that might be at odds with Bob, but no one has a problem with Bob, right? So, yeah, guys, just real quick, I love that you guys have been talking the entire show and stuff like that. This isn't, if you guys are dominating the chat space itself, if you guys feel like that's appropriate, just please simmer a little bit, right? Pick a different topic, right? It's, you know, there's 12 people, right? There's people that aren't chatting that are reading chat and stuff like that. We don't need to have an MMA fight right now. Cool. So that's that. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Why is Antarctica not able to be explored? I don't know. Yeah, idealism to me, my progression, I learned idealism and then I learned about ontology and then I got more into idealism. Mental representations is interesting. I think the hard part for some people is how close to sort of like Freudian, Jungian stuff it is. There's a lot of psychology that happens in a lot of psychology that can come up when we talk about mental representations. Then we're trying to decide what like a what is a qualia, what is a mind. And maybe this is my bias, right? Maybe I have a bias here, but like I grew up listening to neuroscientists. I grew up with the Paul and Patricia Churchlands of the world. I'm sure you've heard of them. Sam Harris obviously has I think is it a master's in neuroscience and a doctoral degree in philosophy. And yeah. It's all simulation, really. See, Beto's got one fan. So what's it matter really? What's the matter?
I
What's the
think
matter?
Sizzle makes a good point there, though, right? Whether it's a simulation or this is base reality or there's a fundamental consciousness. I mean, all three of those are indistinguishable, right? The one with the least assumptions would be that this is base reality, right?
So
And that
what?
consciousness
But okay,
arises.
I'm not gonna let you go too far. Can you back it up?
Okay,
Just can you
sure.
back it up just 1 second, right? Because we're friends about a lot of this stuff, but if we're gonna grant that easily, and I don't mean to go directly into you or Sizzle too much, but if we grant this easily that it's a simulation, what does that actually mean in terms of, what are we saying different about the world than we're saying
Well,
there's a phenomenal reality that we study? What's different about those two things?
that's what I'm saying. Whether the simulation theory or solipsism are true, or everything is fundamentally conscious is true,
Right.
uh, or not necessarily everything is fundamentally conscious, but everything is fundamentally consciousness is true. All of those we still have, or whether this is just base reality, all of those
Yeah.
we still have something here that we are interacting with and receiving sense data from, and all three of those seem to be indistinguishable, right? Or for whatever a number of positions, they all seem to be indistinguishable, right? That's the point that I'm. Four of them, yeah. They all seem to be
Yeah.
indistinguishable. Whether I'm the
100.
only one that exists and you're all a figment of my imagination, whether we're all a byproduct of like a computer simulation or something, whether this is base reality and it is as it seems, or whether there's fundamental consciousness and we're some fever dream of a divine mind, all of those would be indistinguishable given our circumstances, I would think, right? And so what I was saying is the one with the least assumptions would seem to be that this is just base reality and things seem to be the way they are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would be the point besides
Epistemology.
mental baggage?
That's the end. That's like the start of my point, right? The start of my point is that if things aren't like they are, then, or if they are like we describe them and that is not like they are, then it's still the case that from a philosophical perspective, when we're talking about knowledge or categories, or we have we have classifications for things, then that almost makes it obsolete, right? Because we went the wrong way. We didn't do philosophy to talk about to talk about reality. We did math to talk about reality, and math itself is creates reasons and evidence, but math itself is like a formal language that doesn't actually exist. It doesn't have to exist. I don't like. I
What
don't know
what
if
what
that
what
makes
would be the mental benefit of thinking that everything's a divine mind, or that I'm the only person that exists and the rest of you are part of my fever dream, or we're all a simulation, right? What would be the point of any of that? The least mental baggage and most parsimonious position, in my opinion, is this is base reality, right?
so.
The
It's
other
because
positions don't
I can
provide anything
explain this. Yeah.
besides baggage.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Vic? We got Vic in chat. Good to see you again. If you guys are new to the channel, uh, feel free to like and subscribe. Yeah, so I can explain this too. So, the reason solipsism isn't powerful is because if you have personal experience and personal belief, it's not powerful or it's not explanatory. There's not a lot of epistemic grounding because as soon as I grant you, like I can even grant you that you're the only observer. I can grant that your psychology is, or psychology in general, is what determines what the world is like, right? It determines, what knowledge you have access to, and therefore, what the world can be like, right? It's your knowledge, right? But at the same time, if I grant you all of this and then you're not willing to grant me claims about from my worldview or perspective, then then all you're ever able to do, you're not actually talking about knowledge or beliefs or correspondence in the first place. You're talking about you're talking about the way you relate to the world, right? And so it's like, well, uh, so like that, unless you have something extra, I see that as how a 3-year-old sees the world, right? That is how a toddler sees the world. If you see the world differently, then you'll have to explain that. But if you're not producing something useful and we're having a discourse, well, we're not having a discourse. As it turns out, that's not what that is. Not everyone has to be that blunt or aggressive, but if we're talking about the explanatory power or the usefulness of a lot of ideas that people have about the world, you can't just accept nothingness. You can't just accept that, well, nothing outside this but this. Um,
No, that are you saying that this is base reality? Is how a 3-year-old would see the world?
um, I'm saying that base reality is base reality requires complex conversations, right? Base reality, if if you if you and I are unable to grant each other perspectives, even if you and I are agreeing to have a conversation about something in good faith, in good faith, then how I would describe that as we're operating or as working is that, like, well, look, I just said from the get-go, I don't have to pursue anything that robustly. I don't have to pursue any small thing. I don't have to find the smallest sort of grain of sand to justify your beliefs. I'm just saying that sure, your beliefs, if you asked, your beliefs are justified from the get-go. Um, uh, so
Well, it's not justifying it from the get go, right? I mean, if you're talking about, if I'm with you, if you're talking about like the fundamental state of reality, we were comparing 4 different ideas on that, and I was pointing out that they all seem to be indistinguishable, and the most parsimonious, the one with the least variables, and the least mental stress would be that this is base reality, and that if you knew this was a simulation, you might not think any of this matters, and you might try to get out of the simulation. Or if you were a solipsist, you might think that you're the only one that exists. And I feel like the solipsists I've talked to were very, very sad people. In fact, one of them actually cried to me when he was explaining to me his position. Um, I feel like there's a lot of mental baggage that would come along with that position. And then, like I said, so like those two positions, you can eliminate that mental baggage. In addition, it just seems more parsimonious to not hold those positions and assume this is base reality. And then the divine mind one seems to be indistinguishable once again with extra variables, right? That's what I was saying, just so that we're on the same page.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, yeah, yeah. So like that's cool, and this is where, you know, if you say that, and again, I can just grant you that because, if you're saying, there's this solipsist position, whether it's about the world or it's about knowledge, I can also say, well, there's ineffability, right? There's circumstances and things that aren't explained. There's no way to explain every sort of type of perception or sensory data or thought that comes from that. And so if I'm granting you all that, then the next thing that I'm going to ask for, right, the next sort of concession is like, I'd like you to grant that I also have that same sort of spiritual, as well as like very much naturalist sort of perspective about things, right? Like it's not a surprise. This is what I would say is it's not a surprise when, you know, when my worldview is changed or updated, however you want to see it, because, because my approach is that I grant people stuff, like not trying to be tactical. It's just like, well, if I can grant you something, we can have an actual conversation. I'm not trying to argue against you, but that is, just how. That's why I don't see solipsism as being representative in the world, and I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I don't think that's that controversial of a statement. It's not about anything.
Right, but what I was saying earlier though is if somebody was a solipsist, none of that would matter how many people believe them or they don't, right? Like if you were a solipsist, don't you think that everyone that you would talk to would disagree with you and try to convince you that you actually are not solipsists? Because if solipsistic reality was true, it'd probably be more likely you go incredibly crazy if you're the only one that actually exists and you know it, right? So wouldn't your mind do something like try to convince you out of it through people disagreeing with solipsism and trying to convince you that solipsism is a dumb position?
Would it convince me? So what? So
No, I'm saying if solipsism was true and you were the only person, let's say I'm the only person that exists, right? And
right.
so you, if I was a solipsist, you saying, "Hey, solipsism doesn't seem convincing. Most people don't find it convincing." That would
Yeah.
seem more convincing towards solipsism because your mental faculties would likely try to pull you back into
So
solipsism, right? Uh,
yeah. So there's two
by,
different. So there's
by
two.
or pull you
There's two.
out of solipsism,
So
right?
there's 2
Is
points.
what I
There's
mean.
2 point. Right. There's 2 points. Right. The old is the ergo cognito ergo sum, whatever it is. I think therefore I am. Um, and so this is a very old argument. The name
Yeah, that supports solipsism.
it supports solipsism as an epistemic starting point, right? It does one simple thing, right? And so the reason, if someone wants, the reason I would accuse someone of saying that they landed on a solipsist worldview for some reason, whether it's right or wrong, is because they don't want to leave that thought experiment. They don't want to leave the idea that through reason alone we can escape solipsism, but that's not actually corresponding to what evolutionary psychology is about. Evolutionary psychology is about a lot of different stuff, right? And so the the fact or the ability to go to go out and make a choice, make a decision, and that's cool. Or to do otherwise, whatever, right? It doesn't matter. Like, if I just say that, like, look, I read Descartes and now I'm done. Cool. That's the choice you made. You read Descartes and now you're done. There's nothing else that you can do. There's absolutely nothing else that you can go do. But like, so it's not convincing to me, because I don't think that Descartes wrote about human knowledge in the year fucking in 1450. He wrote about what he thought knowledge was about. I
Do
think
you
most
not
of us
see
agree
though
about that
how
stuff.
all of this would push somebody who's a solipsist more into solipsism? Like if I
Um,
was a solipsist, you talking to me like this would simply push me more into solipsism, because you're sitting here trying to convince me that solipsism isn't based, and I would think that that is something that somebody that if I was a or if I was the only mind that existed, that is probably something my mind would do to push me in further into solipsism, right?
we don't disagree about that. We don't disagree about it, right? But my point is just to have, like, if we were like, if I was supposed to be a cult leader, I would have a different conversation. If I wasn't going to be a cult leader, the conversation I would want to have is like a meta ethical conversation, like any other normal person, right? Maybe it's bad, right? Maybe it's because I have my cheap my what's been described as a drive-through headset on. I think it's actually normal for people to have small discussions or small reflections about their own meta ethics or their own sense about knowledge. Um, I don't have to like get away from your solipsism to do that. I can grant your solipsism, and then at the end of the day, you and I either agree or we disagree. If you and I were to disagree about something, well, again, what is the context or the point of that, right? There may just not be. There may just not
Well,
be, right?
the ultimate point that I was making is that I don't see there being value in solipsism for myself or other people, because operating from the mindset that you're the only one that exists when there seems to be sense data that we're receiving would seem to be, at least to me, less parsimonious than uh, this just being. I mean, I guess it would be one substance, everything just being consciousness, your own mind, right? But uh, to me, it feels uh, like there'd be no value that you could derive from that. And so, at least in the case of solipsism, you would have to dismiss it uh, just for your own sanity and the overall lack of value that it would provide to your life, right? Because even if solipsism is true and I or you are the only ones that exist, which in my case it would be, I would be the only one that exists because I feel like I'm living a life outside of your brain, right? But with that being said, there seems to be no value there. There seems to be a shared reality. Yeah, at least have to live like that's the case, right? Because that seems to be likely the case, at least in my opinion. Although, like I said, I've spoke with a few solipsists, but that's also what I was saying about the other options there, right? And so, in my opinion, the most parsimonious out of all the positions is that this is base reality, and we have to operate from there, right? And so, like I was saying earlier, fundamental consciousness is prescribing a whole nother thing on top of base reality, right? Because in the seemingly base reality, we have a mind that emerged from physical processes over billions of years. And so to me, that seems like a position that you arrive at after the stuff has already happened, stating that this thing that happens after the stuff already happened before the stuff happened, and the stuff that happened emerged from it. It would seem to be like a unfalsifiable and useless position, even if it were true, you know? Idealism.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whoops.
Because everything would still be the same. We would still live in the same reality. Nothing would be different.
Yeah. So the one big difference with idealism is that, according to Bernardo Kastrup and many others, um, it's actually the case. It's actually the case that mental objects and minds, the type that you're discussing, the type that you may think exists as real, it's actually the case that those minds are relational. They do have a relationship to the rest of the world, and so one of the things that I think is very different between a solipsist having an initial question about how you impact the world and having received maybe a first answer about how that can be, or how reason applies and operates there in that space, is, Bernardo Kastrup would say, well, eventually, sort of what unfolds is that you do ultimately reach a description of the world that's about physics, that's about psychology. It can be about a lot of things. It can be about the social context that we accept in, which lives inside of us. And some people decide that there's really no deeper meaning or order to that. And that's cool. But we've also seen with people like Adolf Hitler, that's dangerous, right? You can't have just a myopic view and be a leader, or a myopic view and be an individual. And so I still don't see why I have to disprove your own solipsism, but I also don't see how you wouldn't be able to grant someone else their worldview in that same context.
Well, that was a point. You couldn't disprove somebody's solipsism if they were a solipsist, right? And you can't disprove your own solipsism, right? But I was saying that there's good reasons to believe that this is base reality and operate from there, and then as a foundation, and then analytic idealism is something that would come way later on in the reasoning process, and it seems unnecessary and superfluous.
Yeah, it's very possible, right? It's very possible. It could just be the case that, like, Daniel Dennett's universe is right, and that even those solipsist discussions are, it's epiphenomenalism. It's a way that we talk about our own perceptions as a way to understand the world, and who knows, as people start, as anyone goes out to start making descriptions and prescriptions about the world, right? Some of those become problematic or difficult to access. It's almost like it's in a personal, private language. And it also could just be the case that we make up words. We make up words like consciousness. We make up words like perception in order to describe our own experience or something.
I mean, we definitely do make up language, but the language is descriptive, right? And so it's kind of what you were saying there, where we make up words to describe things.
Yeah.
Because language is descriptive. Like, I don't know, a tree is describing or an oak tree is describing a specific thing that exists in reality, right? And if there was no oak tree that existed, it could still be describing a concept of a tree, of that type of object that exists in reality, right? Or that
Yeah.
doesn't exist in reality if it didn't exist in reality. Like a unicorn, right? Like a unicorn is a word that we have to
Sure.
describe the concept.
Sure. Yeah. 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 Unicorns are difficult to talk about because they don't exist. Maybe when unicorns are easy to talk about, it's because unicorns do exist, or it's because they don't exist, right? So anything you can say about unicorns is because they don't exist. But I don't know.
I don't know. I think philosophy is stupid. I think it has us thinking about a lot of unnecessary stuff. Although philosophy is fun too, but there's a bunch of stupid. I think there's a bunch of stupid stuff in philosophy, right? a lot of stuff that is outdated doesn't apply to reality, yet we still reference and people still believe in because philosophy is not as rigorous as science, right? And it's not, at least, you don't always have a referent in philosophy, whereas in science, you're uh, describing what you see, right? So it's a little bit different because it involves more abstractions and less uh, empirical testing and rigor.
Uh, yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I explicitly disagree with anything that you have said. I think if I don't agree right off the bat, part of it is because I have been doing like more like pragmatism recently, and it always seems to me that like when people are taking pragmatic applied views of questions and problems, there are weird ineffable scenarios where it's like, well, look, if the world doesn't feel just or secure, if the world doesn't feel like, we're all operating on sort of a level playing field, it's very easy, and to me in some cases, to say like, well, physics still matters. It still matters that we have philosophy, that we have all of these other things that are happening or something like that. But it also seems to me to be the case that um, that if we're not applying knowledge towards problems, um, it's almost like the sort of total pool of knowledge almost seems to decrease, right? There's not some like boundless complexity formula that we're always getting smarter or something. I Yeah, I couldn't say. I don't know. I don't know. Burr burr burr. Something burr 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 something 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 something. Oh, trap music. How you guys doing in chat? And by the way, if this is your first time on the channel, this is Duck's Why. My name is Duck. We have a very special guest, Breakfast Tacos, tonight.
I'm not a. You keep overtime. I'm just a normal person, dude.
Whatever. But it's good to see you guys. If you guys like these sort of discussion formats, we also do a lot of mobile first content. I love talking to you guys. We've got a lot of awesome channel members that spend a lot of time in chat. And yeah, our sort of core things is we don't talk down to folks. We try and get everybody's idea a fair shake. We have conversations. You guys can tell me when I'm going wrong. You guys can make fun of me. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, so it's good to see you guys like and subscribe. And yeah, anyways, back to something or another.
I'll clarify what I was saying there because I apparently I made some people in the chat angry. I love philosophy, right? And it provides a lot of useful tools to determine things that are true and good ways of thinking, right? But I also think philosophy has a stupid side to it in that anybody can do philosophy, and which is good, but it's also a bad thing, right? Because you do have to account for the fact that 50% of the population is below average IQ. Now, I don't know where I fall on that spectrum, but my point stands that 50% of the population falls below average IQ.
But yeah. So, I've seen this in Discord where it can feel like conversations are running in circles, because someone doesn't understand how a conversation works. Someone doesn't understand how a conversation is supposed to work. Um, you know, but isn't it the case that uh, that uh, like people being able to ask questions, right? People being able to ask questions like all the way back to Socratic dialogues, right? It's 2025 now. I don't understand where if you don't like philosophy, you haven't studied philosophy or something like that. And there are places on Discord and stuff like that where people can go to study philosophy. But what I don't understand is if you are a person who hasn't studied philosophy or had those types of conversations, um, it seems like we automatically send people back to, well, go read about what these inbred Greek people did 2,000 years ago and read about what they talked about, when there's actually more contemporary conversations that talk about the same ideas and concepts that people are interested in. I don't know if because you do YouTube and stuff like that. I don't know if you bumped into that or anything like that.
Yeah, like that Platonist guy earlier, right? That I feel like
Yeah.
Platonism is like 2,000 years outdated, right? There's way better ideas around Platonism than Platonism. you know, um, there's way better ways that people describe things, right? No, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like there is uh thousands of years of philosophy, right? And it constantly expands on itself, right? And some people start at the beginning, some people pick it up in the middle, some people pick it up at the end. But a lot of people find like one philosopher they agree with, and they stop reading other people and they start reading all their stuff and they become like an expert in their stuff or very familiar with their stuff, and they just ignore the uh, other hundreds or thousands of years of philosophy that came after it that either had uh, attacks against it, supports it, whatever, right? And they become a Hegelian or a Platonist or uh, like a theologian. They become a Thomist, right? Or there's all sorts of different philosophers and theologians that people latch on to, right? But there is even new philosophy coming out. Like there's Graham Oppy, right? Who's constantly releasing new material. Uh, and it just builds upon prior stuff, right? Um, don't get stuck in like one person from like like 500 BC, right? That's important.
Yeah, and I mean, I personally would accept that, you said that and stuff like that too. I also think it's the case that philosophers like Aristotle and like Plato, like Plotinus, some of the philosophers who I would argue didn't really get a fair shot. I would argue they didn't get heard out. I'm not saying the world has to be totally different than it is, but like philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, it just rolls off the tongue. We know about those guys. Like Plotinus, who is Plotinus, right? And so it's just one of those, it's one of those interesting things where I hear so often online that like ancient Greek philosophy isn't valuable, and actually it is, as it turns out, right? There's, but still, we shouldn't send people back to the year. you know, I don't know. How long is too long to talk about Aristotle or Plato in one sitting? If you're a classicist, if you're a classicist or you study ancient philosophy, then it's 6 hours, right? It's 6 to 8 hours in the library reading these guys again, or reading secondary text on them.
I just like I said, I just think there's a lot better philosophy from many other philosophers over the years that either incorporates or expands upon. Well, I mean, you should still read the old stuff, right? But I'm saying don't get like caught up at like 500 BC when there's thousands of years of philosophy and science uh, expanding on each other. As our knowledge
Um,
grows, so does our philosophy, right? And
yeah,
as our
yeah,
way of determining what's true becomes better, our science improves.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I don't know. That's I guess I think of, I'm not a big virtue ethics guy, but I think of like adeptness, right? I don't think of like utility in terms of somebody learning about something. It's not what springs to my mind, but I do think of something like adeptness or perceptiveness or like the explainability of the idea itself. Like that kind of stuff is useful, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't say. I don't know.
So are you Canadian?
No, no, I'm in
Oh,
Arizona,
gotcha.
dude. I'm in
Oh, you said there's a
Arizona,
Canadian
United
here. It
States.
might have been the other guy, I guess.
Oh,
But
no, I've been to Vancouver, BC, and I drove over the bridge where Deadpool, if everyone's seen the movie Deadpool, I drove over.
yeah.
I saw a couple other film setups while I was just walking around downtown Vancouver, but
Oh, cool.
been to Vancouver's twice. I've been to Vancouver twice. It's very walkable. It was a very um I don't I mean, I'm like super crazy Greta Thunberg. Like I don't want to buy a plane ticket. I'm happy to travel if there's a really useful opportunity, if I have to for work or something, but um if I had to for work, but um like um Vancouver was so nice. It was so easy to get around. The city's beautiful. It was enjoyable. You guys know how to get down. I've got a couple of my YouTube buddy friends that from Nova Scotia, a couple other Canadian folks I think pop up, but yeah, you guys know how to party. I'm a big fan of Canada. You guys don't know anything about politics, but you guys are good people.
Well, I'm not Canadian, but what do you think about Trump so
Oh,
far?
oh shit! I thought you were Canadian, dude. That's my
No.
bad. No. Oh no. What do I think about Donald Trump? Um, yeah, I mean, my main position is he's one of the most disastrous, uh, inept or intentionally cruel presidents in American history domestically. Um, and geopolitically, some of his actions might be justified, but by and large, I think it's these failed attempts that Christian conservatives have asked for a long time, for the government to teach people lessons and to do less. And I don't think that's how people fundamentally work. I was a big Kamala voter. I've never been ANCAP or libertarian or anything. So, um, yeah, but
I noticed there was a lot of demonization. Not that I wanted to vote Kamala, but I noticed there was a lot of demonization against Kamala from the right, that even the left was saying, like I don't want to vote Kamala, blah, 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 right? But I don't know. I think we kind of got ourselves in a pickle here.
yeah, when you know when I think there's smart MAGA voters and stuff. That's part of why on my mobile live streams I try and yeah, it's like cool. Like if you're MAGA, I know you're gonna get demonized. There's like Parker Loves Debates and a bunch of other YouTubers who argue against MAGA ideas. Um, but it's like cool, okay, so I get it, we're all smart, we're all on a level, there's a level conversation we can have, but if your description of the world is not accurate, if you think the world is an evil place and you get information from a conspiracy website, and then this is what led to Trump's policies, is that we're not able to actually sort of synthesize what the world is actually like and what a human is like what is a human like. um, I'm so against it. See, we got Joe Balls saying,
We're
Joe Balls,
definitely screwed.
if you want to hop up, and talk MAGA stuff, no pressure, but or yeah, if you want to expand on old potato Joe, feel free, feel free. I like Joe Biden. I felt Joe Biden brought a calm, cool, collected spirit to um yeah, Joe's putting a little booty in it right now too.
I mean, you can just look at like the job market. You can look at the economy as a whole. I mean, this is like the worst economy we've had in a long ass time. I mean, Trump. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. Trump has no idea what he was doing, and still has no idea what he's doing. I mean, literally, things that Trump said collapsed the stock market in a day, right? Just dumbass shit Trump would say, right?
Totally.
I mean, that is not a stable president. Or I mean, he might be like mentally stable, but that
Hold on.
is not, in my
Taco,
opinion,
you run the
a
show. Give me 1 second.
stable way to run the
I'll
economy, right?
I'll be,
Have
I'll
one.
be right back.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying. I just don't think that's that he's a healthy thing for the U.S. Right? Joe had a pretty good economy. I mean, it was far superior to what we're dealing with today, right? Um, there's a lot behind that, though. I don't know, man. The Trump is just literally one thing he says collapses the economy. Smell water. It's a funny name, but like, I mean, that's crazy that we voted in somebody that will say dumbass shit that's president. That dramatically impacts the amount of uh, money available to people, right? There's just no reason for somebody to say dumbass shit like that that negatively impacts the economy to such a high extent or high degree. Yeah, no,
Uh,
Kamala would have probably increased taxes a little bit, right? But we needed a tax increase because of inflation, right? I mean, there's a reason that Bill Clinton had a surplus, right? I mean, wasn't Bill Clinton the last surplus we had? I think Bill Clinton was the last surplus we had.
yeah, Bill Clinton was difficult because this is so in the field of geopolitics, and when we're talking about uh, actual advisors that sat in the White House from the early 90s, doesn't matter if it was a Bush or a Clinton at that time, they were talking about how the world was transforming to this sort of multipolar world, right? And so the US had to respond to this, and we saw someone like Bill Clinton who would say, yeah, we can lower taxes on the poor, and we're going to, make cheaper washing machines for the best American companies in Mexico, and this is going to be good. Our neighbors in China can figure out what they're going to do, and we'll sell those products eventually. And so we did, right? Everything sort of tampened in with this new neoliberal vision that maybe had some sort of longer tail leading out to like a decline of active US hegemony in the world, active US hegemony. um, you know I think one of the problems is that we've seen that if the United States is someone that even in this case, even with Clinton and Obama, talks about washing machines and um, talks about how the U.S. can sell Chinese products and stuff like that. Um, the problem is that well, if you're still not, if you're not talking about democracy and you're not talking about liberal government um, from the White House, then no one talks about it, right? We've seen that people would trade TikTok, people will trade social media for actual democracy. People will argue about fascist national ideas because it's acceptable on social media. Um, and it's difficult because I think we're also starting to see that some people that have either created distance from themselves from Trump or would admit that they don't totally understand his policies. You guys can let me know if I'm wrong here. Um, I still think that democracy is this sort of fundamental human value, human trait type deal or thingy. Um, and we can see in chat, Smellwater says Bush, Obama, Biden, all were horrible presidents. Trump is the greatest American of all time. Yeah. Um, and he, she, they, Smellwater says blue. gave illegals homes, but not our homeless. Not our homeless. Yeah, and so in terms of economic justice, my my question for small water would be, what does economic justice actually entail? Is this Trump, or are you seeing the MAGA Republicans solving long-term problems of homelessness? How do you measure it? Do you have a way to measure it that we don't see on Breitbart? Do you have a
The
way to measure it
economy
that
is the worst it's ever
isn't just made
been,
up
or at least
information?
has been in a long ass freaking time. And this dude's saying that let me find Blue gave illegals homes, but not our homeless. They ignore everything that's going on and they focus on like one thing that they think they can make a good point on, and they just ignore everything else. There's like, even if we grant that's true, which I I would disagree with. I think illegals should be deported or handled appropriately, right? I think that there's a process to bring in immigrants that's legal, and they should follow those processes, right? Or uh, maybe do some type of naturalization program or something, right? But there is a problem with hyper focusing on these irrelevant points, right? I mean, right now, the major thing that we need to focus on is inflation, right? Like that guy's cost per carton of egg has gone up 150% or 175% in the last 5 years. That guy's cost to go get a McDonald's has gone up 175% in the last 5 years. That guy's what he used to spend $50 on at the supermarket now costs $125, right? How
Yeah,
can you be eating the costs that have occurred over the last 4 or 5 years and be saying that ever 6 years, whatever, ever since it was like COVID, actually, COVID after that Trump stimulus, right? Ever since then, it's been going up, right? Way exponentially, right? And this is observable. I don't have the data in front of me, but if you pull up data on this, the data will support this, or be very close to it, right? But it's gone up dramatically since then, right? And this is 2 Trump presidencies, right? I mean, how are you not scared and focusing on illegal immigration? That is a messed up priority. There are people, there are citizens that cannot pay for their food. Actual people living in the country that cannot pay for their food. They can't find work. They can't live a normal life. There's people that are losing their homes, and it's because wages have been stagnant since the 80s, and then costs have gone up exponentially higher over the last 5 or 6 years. Nobody can keep up with it, right? And you focus on illegal immigration. Are you joking my ass? Deport them all. I don't care. Like the money, the economy is what we need to focus on. And it's insane right now. They're like, we need to get religion in the government, blah 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 blah. You guys are insane. You have insane ideas,
so
and rather than focusing on actually having people, allowing people to have the ability to live a good life, you want to focus on deporting people or whatever. Focus on your people, dude. This is
yeah,
2 Trump presidencies.
yeah, and I do think Trump supporters, if they argue Donald Trump is acting more decisively and his actions, while appear horrendous, I think horrendous is the way a lot of people would describe them. They do appear in line with the zeitgeist. Um, I think there's a lot of people that would argue Donald Trump is acting as if he's living in the feudal era. He's not acting in the sense where there's institutions which create broad web, which not only covers economic issues like you were discussing, not only talking about topics like inflation or home prices or the price of groceries, but speaks about the way those mechanisms are evolve in some sense. And we talk about that sort of pace of change and where that comes from, why there's always global context in sometimes large ways for how adept the American industries are. Um, you know, you, it, we can still talk about how Donald Trump isn't leading institutions. He's attempting to redefine them to something which isn't congruent with perhaps society in general, but also democracy. And so saying that, um, and like Smellwater is still saying we're really wrong about Trump. That might be the case, right? There might be really hard circumstances, but the fact that uh, Donald, I see POTUS, I see the president Donald Trump making choices which are adversarial, which are aggressive, which are specifically targeting, harassing, or otherizing individual citizens and groups, while at the same time not describing the macro conditions where those came from. That isn't institutional. That's an illegitimate and perhaps illegal act of government. Those types of things. That's not how the world should work. Most people psychologically agree with that. Um, and the fact that I think the evidence, all the proof you need is that the part that gets me is when people say all lefties, all MAGA, all that other stuff. I don't care if I'm reading my own books, if I'm reading about the history of the United States or the history of societies in general, of polities where we have these democratic sort of representative methods of making decisions, and we're trying to that's the product that we're actually eventually trying to export to other countries. We're trying to find a parity so we can understand how the United States actually competes. um, well, all lefties are all doing that same thing. You can pretend like there's a different politics, or you can pretend like there's a different world that you live in. um, but if there is a condition such that humans are driving change in a free society, um, not only is Donald Trump doing the things that you talked about, he's also negating or forgetting the fact that society is capable of more. And so he's basically just pandering, not to populism, but to this collective delusion that you have optionality in a society. You have an option to not oblige, to not listen. I don't understand that at all. I don't understand it. I think it's BS. But what do you guys think? Mox, good to see you. Smellwater,
I mean,
thanks
I'd
for
like to
joining
say
chat. It's good to see you
that
too.
the Trump supporters were shit talking Biden. They were shit talking Kamala. Because he says, I find it hilarious Trump haters on the side of democracy, when in fact hating Trump proves otherwise. He was voted in by the people and should be accepted, yet we have people rooting against him. It was pretty ridiculous. There were people rooting against Joe Biden. That was pretty insane to me. It was pretty ridiculous. There were people rooting against Obama. That was insane to me, right? Everybody wants Trump to be successful. Nobody's rooting against Trump. Everybody wants him to be successful. What people don't want are a theocracy, monarch, uh, Elon Musk tearing up, which kind of stopped, but Elon Musk tearing apart government branches. What people don't want is way expensive cartons of eggs and other groceries. What people don't want is an ability to find jobs.
That's too bad. That's too bad. I don't give a
There's
shit.
a lot more I
That's
could
too
name, right?
bad. But that's too bad. It doesn't matter if your politicization of things is asking to have a moon rock from frickin' Mars and you're trying to bring that back, you can't even have that. You shouldn't even have that conversation. What are you going to get back from that in any possible world? It's like you have to go out. If that's your actual political wish, you have to go out and you have to do so much more than you've been doing. Welcome to the United States. The United States has never been as cushy and easy, and the fact that you want to make it mean and nasty doesn't make it harder. It makes it less capable of keeping up. And good on you if you're doing this because you believe that the United States has done something to earn an unequal distribution of wealth on planet Earth. If you think the United States isn't capable of being a wealthy nation, and this is why you think we should all be so nasty to each other, good. But it seems inconsistent when I turn on the news and I still see xenophobia. When I turn on the television and it appears people have asked the large broadcasters to become extremists. Don't be extreme. Go out and work for the actual goal that you're trying to pursue. No one can tell you that that goal is wrong. But if you haven't worked for it, then it's wrong from the get-go because it's going to fail. You don't get the optionality to have a political belief and not succeed. You don't get the optionality to have a political belief and not be open to hearing in a democracy that you could just be wrong and that there's a point where there's no break even. Not only is there no break even, but the story just gets worse for you. And if you don't believe that the story can get worse for you, then holy shit, right? Okay. Okay. You just haven't found the point yet where people are saying, okay. Oh, what's up? We got a legend here too, Taco. We got BS
Yeah,
Loose in
he's pretty
chat.
great. He's pretty great. Mox said, "Come on, come on, dude, be honest. Trump haters don't want him to do good. Everybody wants the president of their nation to be successful, even if they have a terrible president. There's a difference between calling somebody a terrible president and not wanting them to do good. You can call them a terrible president and want them to be an amazing president. People want our nation to prosper."
Hold on. Whoops.
Who's the extremist, Joe? I'm confused where he's going with that. I know I'm not an extremist. I'm a centrist. I actually kind of like Elon Musk's idea of making a third political party. I think that's a good idea. I don't know if Elon Musk is the right person for it, given the what is it, the technocratic ideals he holds. But I think it would be a good idea with a centrist, or maybe make a bunch of different parties, right?
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
power shouldn't be split between two.
Yeah, you know, Elon Musk has I think a lot of funny ideas. I think a lot of people saw Elon Musk as an idealist builder when he was building companies like Tesla, right? Why not Tesla? Nobody really cares about Ford and Chevy and all those companies anyways. I mean, those guys are so unjust, right? They sell their cars through dealerships. They're idiots. Um, but uh, but like with Elon Musk and that sort of innovator, creative, sort of exploratory ethos, I think a lot of people feel that in the tech community, Elon Musk has been successful and done these huge things, and he's pushed a lot of the responsibility out to the markets, right? He bought a social media company. He bought Twitter. He rebranded it to X. He's done nothing with it. He's done nothing with Tesla the last 3 or 4 years, you know? And so where normal people, I think, are saying, well, okay, this Elon Musk guy, he's a real worker. He figured out how he can sell cars directly to people. He can cut out the middleman. He can put more money into the business. And like if you guys chat, if you guys have a different opinion, but where's Elon Musk done that recently? He's been asking for government handouts and subsidies, and he doesn't have a company that deserves those things. He sells $70,000 cars to the management class in the United States. He sells $70,000 cars to people who want to make YouTube videos. I don't get it. I'll take a third party, sure, let's talk about it, but If I'm wrong about this, let me know. If we have Elon Musk in the White House, adjacent to the White House, why? What has he done? He's not even like a governor. You guys can think of the governor that you hear of.
Elon's not a good move. I was saying that I like the idea of a third party, and somebody had made it a better idea: vote on individuals. So that's a good idea. Have individuals go up, right? But Mox is saying no, they don't. They tried bleeping him. They weaponized the court system against him. I mean, if somebody's convicted of a bunch of felonies, I mean, that's probably a true thing. And you don't, I mean, you think that they use a legal system to jack up Trump, man? That's some crazy conspiracy theory shit. It's much more likely that he just did whatever they found him guilty of and was found guilty of that stuff, right? And he's just a felon as he was deemed by the government, right? That seems to be the case. And voting for a felon who can't even vote for himself seems like a really bad option, right? I think any sane person would avoid voting for, like, what did he have, like 40 something? I might be wrong on that number. I don't know the exact number. 30 something, 40 something convictions. It was a lot, right? Like a lot of convictions. Or is it conviction? I don't know what the terminology they used was, but he had a bunch of felonies. Voting for that seems kind of absurd to me.
Yeah. Yeah, this is my neurodivergence. I don't disagree. My simple rule is like I try it's hard, like, okay, I can judge someone, or like someone can be the bad guy. I know how. I have the skill of being oppositional to someone or whatever. But also, like, once you see that someone has multiple convictions in court, or they've done something wrong, or they've made a decision to go forward and they can't be transparent about why that is, and I feel that's unethical, well, it's also fine to just say, well, this is a person who thinks that's okay, or this is the type of person who does that, right? So what are you going to lead actually? Can you tell me something interesting that's not a problem that me, a citizen, is now solving for you? Like, I'm a progressive, so if I'm a progressive, I don't want to be solving my government's problems all the time. I'm okay with civic responsibility and civic duties, but if we elect the wrong person and then I'm solving problems that the government should be administering or solving, then that's the opposite direction of what I vote for. That's not good because you don't have a plan. You didn't decide to do something great or ambitious and be wrong about it. You didn't come forward with an understandable idea in the first place. You showed up from nowhere and now you're telling me about your politics. And that's not how that should work, right? You know, there's politics. Like, I don't agree with Marco Rubio. I think Marco Rubio was fine as a Tea Party guy. He said a lot of really horrible things. He was asking for regressive policies, but even at the time, Marco Rubio would, you know, as far as he had convictions, you could see that he would think about the things that he would say. And then as soon as Donald Trump comes along, and Donald Trump is the new star of the Republican Party, what happens to Marco Rubio? Well, Marco Rubio is not trying to bring back conservatism anymore. He looks like he's working for big money. He looks like he's working for the most bigoted or hateful beliefs that get him the most attention. That's not something I'd ever vote for. Hey, what's up, Robin? We got Robin Webster here as well. Robin just got back. Taco, I don't know if you heard about the ARC encounter protests in Kentucky.
Oh, no. What happened?
Robin, I don't know if you want to come up and talk about the protests a little bit. Robin's one of the mods on our channel. She's also a good friend who I know from the Pangburn universe and other places. But, you know, Kentucky, a bunch of the big YouTubers, including Durante Lamar, Chris Mallard, a lot of people up and coming, got together and did a protest for secular society. So for people interested in, somebody said talk about protests. Yeah. Robin, if you want to come up, no pressure. I know I've seen you on YouTube before. But if you want to come up and say hi and tell us about how the protests went and all that stuff, feel free. We are chilling tonight. We're chilling. Hey, what's up, Mox? Good to see you in chat too. Ride the wave. Good to see you. But yeah, I know that there's I mean, obviously, oh, Durante didn't show. That's a bummer. Yeah, Durante's cool. Durante, for folks that don't know, Durante Lamar is a former Baptist preacher. He now does a secular atheist Sunday show. He does Bible studies and stuff. So, yeah, he's a little more. He's closer to tacos in the sense that he's very direct. I'll talk about theology. I'll talk about Donald Trump's politics and stuff here. Whatever. Some folks don't, but no, they don't ever trust each other. So, but they know where they stand.
This is madness. We just need to peacefully eliminate religion through education over the next 50 years, mine an asteroid or two, and then share the wealth and start pushing towards Star Trek global society.
I'm for it. Yeah, the right mix of Spocks and Worfs and Captain Picards and really leaders of all kinds, right? You know, I didn't like Vivek Ramaswamy that much. I felt he was politically immature and naive. But it was cool seeing, a guy from like the biotech industry or whatever jump into politics. It's good to have people with a chip on their shoulder. It's good if they're actually principled, right? Some Americans who, like, I don't have a reason to not vote for a Mormon, for example. Anyone in the U.S. knows that, there's strong Mormon populations in Salt Lake City and Arizona, various other places. I don't have a reason to just not vote for a Mormon politician right away. I like John Huntsman and stuff. And so I think when we see someone like Vivek Ramaswamy look obviously so not ready or fit to lead a public office or something, was my take. It's almost like, well, guys, why didn't we just have dialogue? Why didn't we have a deliberative process earlier in politics and stuff like that? It would have been so easy. That's one of the things, is it would have been so easy to sort of imagine the issues people are interested in, the types of network, the types of political activations that they see. And then from there, we could have just talked about, well, what's the counterforce to policies we don't agree with? That's actual politics. We could have been doing this. And even in already, I know the MAGA folks are going to go a little crazy when I say this. Well, the counterforce for Republicans was or Democrats was the No Kings protest. The counterforce was the LA protests. If you want to call it a riot or whatever, I don't care. The whole point is that those acts of civil disobedience were the counterforce already politically. And without being able to sort of take away some of those more foundational lessons from working with different types of leaders with different political perspectives, you don't have a democracy. You have nastiness, meanness, and bullying. Mox is talking about geopolitics in chat as well. If anyone wants to jump on stage, I do have the link pinned. If you are on mobile, you can just refresh chat and you will see the link to the restream. Mox is saying Biden pushed Russia and China to rely on each other, which is the worst thing we could have done. China was going to kill the US dollar, but Trump stopped that. Now China is laying low. Yeah, that's a big topic. I think if you want to say more, feel free, Mox. I think you're oversimplifying. I don't think the description of China and US politics has to be that complicated. It's actually quite simple. But I do think that's a little bit of an oversimplification. It's a little oversimplified for me. So,
Robin's saying the link didn't work.
huh? Oh.
It worked for me though when I clicked it.
I don't know. Is there a time limit on the free version? Oops. Let's try this again. Robin, I'm on YouTube. Oops. In nature, though, just to correct Joe Balls, I'm going to try and correct you. Just in nature, according to Jean-Jacques Rousseau, as well as Thomas Hobbes, at least, in nature, the weak have a father and a mother. So you have both of those things. So you can be weak if you have a mom and dad in nature. That should say something. Hands of Light says, are you good at math? No, I conceptually understand physics. If you want to talk about formal languages or something, feel free. Beto in chat knows a little bit about physics, but I'm not that good at math. Not that good at math. Yeah, philosophy of math is interesting. There's formal languages in mathematics. Most people know about the formal languages. If you study philosophy, you understand what a formal language is. And yeah, and yeah. Oh, Beto's saying that it only worked on PC for him. Sorry, guys. It just doesn't have another. Whoops. Can you guys hear Taco?
Looks like there's a spot there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You guys can hear me too? Can you get, yeah? Yes or no?
I mean, I can hear you.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, whoops. I think I know what happened. I think I know what happened. Let's see. Let's see if I messed this up or not. Whoops. Oops. Can you guys still see us okay? Yeah, we should have Robin up here. I don't know if Robin's joined, but. Oh, Robin can hear both of us, guys. Robin can hear both of us. Yes, link. Well, that is the link. I can see if I can try and tiny URL it.
It could probably copy it, but DS says it's not showing up as a link. I got some fun debates scheduled over the next few days.
Ooh, let's hear about it. Let's hear about it.
Jack Talcott,
No.
Snafu on Thursday on the
Jack
topic.
Talcott.
On the topic is Jack Talcott a false prophet? So that's going to be a really fun one. Then I've got Jack Talcott the next night on Friday evening, once again at 8 p.m. Central, versus Flow State, who's the Powdered Dusty. And the topic is Flow State wrong about capitalism? So they'll be debating capitalism and socialism. So there's going to be is Jack Talcott a false prophet? And then a capitalism and socialism debate. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is an awakening. I can say, and I'll post Taco's channel one more time real quick. We're not trying to turn this too marketing-y, but these are all people that I enjoy. These are all subscriptions. I'm a YouTube user as well as I'm at least the guy on your screen right now. But yeah, that's a small world. I've been on Jack's show a couple times. Sometimes Powder Dusty's are such a good host. I go up for a couple minutes, but he's usually so good at talking to chat and the audience and panelists. I'm curious if you did see Jack Talcott on Don Lemon's show.
Oh yeah, I did. That was interesting. I like Jack. I disagree with a lot of his religious points, but like a lot of what Jack says seems like good stuff. And I mean, he's trying to push less war, and he's more democratic leaning, less evil sounding. I don't know. I think he's a better representative for Christianity than a lot of Christians these days. And,
yeah, he doesn't so for people that don't know Jack Talcott, he runs a small panel show and stuff like that. He's a cool guy. He worked at the Postal Service as a manager for a number of years. He recently quit and decided to drive out to Washington, D.C., and he participated in a Veterans Against War protest in front of the Capitol. A couple of the people at the protest got arrested. Jack Talcott, he actually ended up talking to Don Lemon while he was at the protest. Don Lemon had, they called into Don's show, whatever. But Don Lemon was interviewing Jack Talcott in front of the Capitol. Shortly after that, I believe a couple of the veterans, including Jack, jumped the fence. Old school civil disobedience stuff. But he does advocate for almost a mystic Christian sort of worldview. So that should be an interesting topic. I imagine you'll get, who knows, maybe some of the folks from that side of the panelverse. Will show up. So that should be cool. I'll set an alert and I'll try and be in the audience for that one. I also just saw that you have a live. I saw the live schedule that you have for Flow State. Jack versus Flow State should be pretty funny as well.
I think they'll both be fun debates.
Yeah.
I just like hosting fun debates, and I think they'll both be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be cool. I think it'll be good for your channel too. I think it's good for your channel. It'll be good for the audience to see a little bit of what else is out there. Folks that have been on Discord and stuff. Panel versus.
I like Jack and.
Wait, sorry. Give me 1 second, guys. If you guys could say good night and thank you to Bob for hanging out in chat, having some good discussions, and for moderating in chat. Always grateful for Bob. Grateful to see Bob, and yeah, good to see you. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thanks everyone who's leaving.
Thanks.
There's a few of them, it looks like, but I need to go to bed soon too. But I mean, Jack gets hammered by snafu, so I just figured maybe I could provide them a neutral ground to talk and not fight, right? And that would be fun. And then Flow State popped in and was like I want to debate Jack too, and I'm like, okay, that'll be fun. I like them both, so that'll be a fun one.
Yeah.
Hopefully Snafu behaves. I watch a lot of Jack's shows. I like Jack. I enjoy his shows. They're quite entertaining.
Yeah, it should be fun. Are you guys doing it out of Discord?
Yeah, I do them all out of Discord, so I can do the Q&A. Makes Q&A super easy. People flash on there, which hopefully I've only seen once, but if they do some like crazy stuff, pretty easy to get them out of there and have it not visible, right? So Discord makes it a lot easier.
Cool. Well, I don't know. We've been going for 2 hours and 54 minutes. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I gotta go to bed.
Cool. Yeah, let's call it a stream. Thanks so much for coming up, Tacos. Thanks for hanging out for 3 hours. And yeah, we're gonna have to get Robin on, Bob. If anyone else in chat wants to do these shows, I'm still gonna do the mobile stuff. I'll probably still do some of the fitness live streams. Yeah, I mean, it's cool to have people come up and talk, but I almost feel like we get more time to talk or whatever and talk about more topics when it's just on a cell phone, even if the sound sucks in either case. But yeah.
Have a good one, man. Thanks for having me up. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah.
Good to see you rocking and rolling, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone else, I think we're gonna have to get the stream link kind of cleaned up so we can get other folks up. Yeah, and Beto, again, thanks for coming up. We'll have to do more physics in the future. Yeah. So yeah, I'll keep an eye out if you want to join other streams. That would be cool. But yeah. No, Beto, this is just my channel. This is the first time I am a moderator on Taco's YouTube channel. And so yeah, whatever. Yeah, we don't do like a lot of like mathematical or philosophy of physics, but we do some of that stuff. I'm a political scientist in my background. That's my interest in stuff. I like political theory. But most of you guys just care whether or not the links work and somebody's talking about Liver King in chat.